Don't stop.
Good evening, and welcome to the September 5th, 2017 regular meeting of the Orange County Board of Commissioners here at the Richard Whitted Meeting Facility in Hillsborough. It's good to see everyone again, back for another season of local government. We have a not too rigorous agenda to ease back in. We don't want anybody to pull a muscle on the first day, so. But we have, there's a number of items at everyone's places. Just so you know, there's some revised information on the Animal Services Hearing Pool. We have PowerPoint for item 6B about county property. We have a revised abstract for item 6A, which is about the Chamber of Commerce. You have a copy of a PowerPoint on the Family Success Alliance, which is item 4B. You have a handout from some residents who are going to address us during the public comments. You've got something from the Cooperative Extension Agency, some items for the closed session on Thursday, and a copy of the Fortune magazine that has the feature about Morinaga. So all of that is at your places. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda at this point? I'd like to suggest that we move up item 11A, which is the Animal Services Hearing Panel appointments, because we have Bob Morato here in the audience who can answer questions related to that. And since there have been questions about that, I would suggest we move that up to, maybe before the proclamations, resolutions, between items 3 and 4. Commissioner Jacobs.
Yes, I'd like to, Commissioner Price and I would like to suggest that we take item 8H off the consent agenda in light of the fact that we may be about to be meeting a hurricane and have staff give us a preparedness update.
Well, do you want to do that? Do you just want to do that when we get to the consent agenda and pull it out at that time? When we pull out other items from the consent agenda, or do you want it to be earlier in the program?
Before the report.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think before the report.
So, before the report. So
Or add it to, can you add it to the regular agenda?
we could do whatever we want. It's our agenda. You want to add it to item 6 after the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll add it, we'll make that the new item 6A, and everything else on 6 will go down one slot.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Any other changes or additions to the agenda at this time? All right, then. We'll go on to then public comments. The commissioners do public comments in 2 ways. At this point in the meeting, we'll open the floor for public comments for folks who want to speak to items that are not already on the printed agenda. If you are here tonight to speak to an item that is on the agenda, we ask you to sign up at the back, and then when we get to that item on the agenda, we'll take those public comments with the item. So there are 2 folks signed up to speak for items not on the agenda. The first is Eric Myers. He'll come up to the podium, and Commissioner Rich will set the timer for you.
All right. Good evening. My name is Eric Myers. I'm the founder and CEO of Mystery Brewing Company here in Hillsborough and the president of the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild. I'm here to follow up on an email that I sent all of you last week and to ask your consideration as we move forward. As you might recall, I emailed you all last week looking for advice and assistance as we work toward a pair of upcoming events hosted here in Hillsborough on county property over at River Park. My company has been contracted as a vendor to serve alcohol during those events, and we've been given a moving target in terms of how we're allowed to operate while serving alcohol at an outdoor public space. Each iteration has been more and more restrictive. The reason I reached out in the first place was to appeal for help in the face of a constricting set of policies, but what I've learned over the past week is that the problem is that there isn't really a policy at all. I've spoken to Economic Development, Parks and Rec, multiple of you, the Sheriff's Office, and leaders at each level of town and county government, and at all levels one thing seemed clear. Everyone that I spoke to seemed supportive of the presence of my company and an open set of operating parameters in terms of serving alcohol in public. In fact, it seemed that the reason that we were given an ever-restrictive set of rules was because nobody had really thought about the best way to approach it. So the squeakiest wheel got the grease, so to speak. I'm here to ask you today, and the county in general, to consider creating a consistent policy for serving alcohol at public events so that companies like mine operating in Orange County can have a clear set of guidelines within our home communities that we can plan for, work with, and operate within every time. We all want to do things legally and safely, and that is made all the easier when the rules are well considered, well documented, and the same every time. I understand that this is not an easy or quick undertaking. Alcohol is a pretty tricky political matter and requires input from public safety, community leaders, as well as members of the alcohol industry. I've personally been involved in events serving beer in the community for a little over a decade now, and I would be happy to volunteer my time to help craft a good policy for county grounds that are not covered by town jurisdiction, just as I've helped craft state law through the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild, including a large portion of the recent brunch bill. I'll be bringing the same request to the town council here in Hillsborough at their next meeting, and I would urge leaders in other parts of Orange County to do the same. The beer industry in North Carolina is flourishing. It has a yearly economic impact of over $1 billion statewide and creates over 10,000 jobs. Here in Orange County, we only have 6 of the state's 230 breweries, but we support a large swath of the local economy, from restaurants, bars, and grocery stores that buy and resell our beer, to local agriculture that we support with our restaurants and ingredients for the beers that we brew. Our employees live in the local community and support Orange County businesses with their wages. We are by and large community centers for our public, for your constituents, and the fact that we're asked to participate in local public events shows that we're valued by our community as an essential part of what a community gathering is. Giving us common sense rules that allow us to operate at those events while keeping an important eye on public safety and eliminating underage consumption keeps our communities thriving, happy, and while supporting an important part of our local economy. I look forward to helping craft a policy for these important considerations in any way that I can. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. We really appreciate that coming forward, and I think we'll ask staff to refer that to staff to look into the idea of crafting a policy.
Thank you, I really appreciate
And
it.
certainly, it's always it's always good to learn when we have gaps in our policies and we need to address those.
Excellent.
Thank you. Next up is Tom O'Dwyer.
Good evening. The packet has been given to you all that has 3 pages on it. The first page is a letter from my mother-in-law, Doris Tippins, where she assigns me as her power of attorney to represent her this evening. And she writes a private letter to you all with requests in it regarding a unique situation where there was an error made and admitted by the tax officials in her real estate for a period of 8 years. And she addresses that in that letter. Secondly, there is an accounting sheet that I have included in that packet that reveals the amounts of money that was charged in excess due to this error. It's all quite visible. I'd like to read to you my statement, which is also attached. My name is Tom O'Dwyer. I'm a resident of Orange County, and I represent Doris Tippins in the matter of a realty tax error that occurred from 2009 to 2016. Doris is my mother-in-law and turns 89 next month. The error referenced in her letter and my accounting submitted to you tonight happened while she was caring for her ailing husband, Reverend Jim Tippins, until his death in 2010. Jim was the one who addressed finances, and it wasn't until early 2016 that I discovered the error. Doris was wrongly taxed due to a clerical error. This is admitted by staff. I first contacted Orange County's senior tax appraiser in 2016, pointing out the error before her taxes were due. He told me there was nothing I could do about it except appeal the tax appraisal in 2017. He cited laws to me to support his statement. I don't know who made the error, but it resulted in thousands of dollars of wrongful billing. This didn't seem fair, so with Doris's permission, I looked into the issue further. I subsequently met with the director of tax collections, and in a follow-up email, he eloquently acknowledged the error and offered an amount an amount far less than the excess charges billed to Doris as reflected in my submitted accounting. Because of multiple errors, I don't think it would be appropriate for staff to solely decide the outcome, and it was recommended that I address the board. Like Doris says in her letter to you, we need your help. We simply want these errors to be fully corrected. I request you review Doris's letter, my accounting, and decide the best method to resolve this. One more minute, is that all right?
How about just
Okay.
a few more seconds?
I would be happy to meet with any commissioners or county manager with staff to review the facts further. In the paperwork provided, you can see and have confirmed the amount her property was appraised for in 2008 and 2017. The 8 years in between of taxing in error are noted. There are columns that reflect interest rates lost and interest rates that courts or county would apply as examples for Doris's claims. Like Doris, I humbly request the board apply sound ethics and the golden rule in helping us resolve this mistake that cost my mother-in-law so much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Dwyer. We'll refer this to the manager and ask that she please bring us back some more information.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's everyone that was signed up to speak at this part of the meeting. Is there anybody who wanted to speak during this public comment who did not sign up? All right, then, we'll go on to item 3 on the agenda, which is announcements, petitions, and comments by board members. Before we do that, I want to turn the floor over to the manager, who wants to introduce some new folks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and County Commissioners. Tonight, I'm pleased to introduce 2 new members to our Orange County team. And first, I'd like to introduce our new Orange County Housing, Community Development, and Human Rights Director, Cheryl Hampton. She has more than 30 years' experience in community and economic local government administration. She facilitated the formative of several successful local and regional community and economic development and educational initiatives in Alabama, North Carolina, and South Carolina. And we are very pleased. You can come up to the podium if you'd like. We're pleased to have someone with Cheryl's experience and background to lead the Orange County Housing, Community Development, and Human Rights.
Welcome, Ms. Hampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and our other county commissioners and county manager and my colleagues on the county. I am deeply excited to be here, and I thank all of you for the opportunity. I look forward to serving you and the residents of Orange County to the best of my ability. I maintain an open door policy and look forward to working with all of my colleagues as well to uphold the mission of Orange County. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you.
And next, I'd like to introduce our new Orange County Extension Director, Tyrone Fisher. He has served in cooperative extension for 21 years. He served as County Extension Director for Harnett County, North Carolina. He also served in Northampton, Wake, Cumberland, Lee, Warren, and Franklin counties. He has experience and knowledge to lead the extension staff in Orange County to new heights in the years to come. Tyrone Fisher.
Welcome.
Good evening. I would like to thank you for your support for this opportunity to lead you in Orange County. Just like they do in football and NFL, they say the Ohio State, I say the Orange County, because this is a great place to be. You have with you, I want to introduce A&T's Impact Report. I've passed out some of them earlier to the meeting. Orange County is on the cover. If you didn't know it till we studied it, but that is the Breeze Farm on the cover, and you have a tab, and it's Impact and Reports for Orange County. This is being marketed from Murphy to Manio, across state lines as well, and so let you know that people know that the Orange County is this, and look forward to working with you on many projects here as well.
Thank you. We're glad to have you.
Thank you. That concludes.
All right, now we'll turn to commissioners for announcements, petitions, and comments. Trying to keep it to 3 minutes. Mark?
Thank you. want to briefly announce that we had an opportunity to meet together in late August, and the commissioners passed a proclamation naming Labor Day Living Wage Day in Orange County, as did town of Chapel Hill and Hillsborough and Carrboro. And we just wanted to spread the word. We've got at least now 128 living wage employers, and Orange County is one of them, I'm proud to say. Just want all y'all to know that. I was at a meeting of the Partnership to End Homelessness this summer, and we were discussing ways to improve the organization, and one of the things that was discussed was the need for a street outreach coordinator. This is somebody who would actually spend most of their time out of the office, connecting with people, communicating with people, finding out what their life situation is, what they need, what services they need. And money for the position was a stumbling block, and I suggested that we look into money from the Social Justice Fund to fund that position. And we also have some interest from Chapel Hill Police Department to help in the future. And so I would petition that we look into this, and I think it would be an investment. It would save money in lots of other social service ways. And lastly, this is a joint petition. Commissioner Jakes and I have been talking about the fact that the rural buffer is 30 years old, the formation of the rural buffer. The rural buffer is actually eons old, but the formation of the rural buffer is 30 years old this year. And we felt like it was really important to commemorate that and celebrate it and re-educate people about it. And a few suggestions as to how we might do that. We think it might be worthwhile to form a group starting with commissioners and Orange County staff, a small group that would prepare a presentation for the upcoming Assembly of Governments meeting, and then we could also invite representatives from other governments to participate in that. And we really, a lot of people have moved here and hear the word rural buffer, the phrase rural buffer, and don't really know what it means, where it came from, and what it does. And we want to take an opportunity this year to spread the word about that and brainstorm ways other than presenting information at this meeting to educate and commemorate the rural buffer. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll put both of those petitions, we'll refer them to agenda review. I think those are good ideas. Mia?
I have a couple of announcements. One is just to let you know that the health director search continues apace. Under the auspices of the county manager and our HR department, they hired a search firm who's been working hard, and a bunch of applications have come in, and the Board of Health will be looking at those shortly. So I'll keep you posted as I learn more about that. The other thing that I wanted to let you know about is that during the light rail discussion last spring, I was really struck by how there were folks who were very able to be very passionate advocates, not us, we were all fabulous, but they were able to be passionate as well as very civil in the way they advocated. And I mentioned this to some folks, and it really apparently struck a chord with several people, including folks from the Dispute Settlement Center, Aaron Keck from WCHL, and some other community leaders. And we've been having this loose conversation. How do you honor people who can advocate civilly without kind of getting down the gutter, without taking personal jabs and all that kind of stuff? So there'll be more we're meeting, and I think we'll, among other things, we'll probably see WCHL maybe doing some sort of something on air or some sort of awards kind of thing. But I wanted to let you know what I've been mucking about with this summer.
Excellent. Penny?
Yeah, two things. We have also started a search for a new solid waste director. We had our first meeting and met with a firm also. So that will be moving along, and I'm not quite sure what the time frame is on that, but I'm sure we'll get that soon. I'd also like to thank Orange County and the Chapel Hill Carrboro schools for their work over the summer on banning hateful images on school property. I think they had very lively conversations, and it took courage, and they did the right thing. I only wish UNC would do the same. But I'm really proud of those two boards. I attended their meetings, and it's important to fight hate with courage, and that's exactly what they did. I also want to thank the sheriff's office. There was a protest around Silent Sam, and we were asked, the sheriff's office was asked to send some folks out there. And, you know, it's hard when you go out there and you see folks protesting, and then you see cops, and you see people that you know from the sheriff's department out there, and it's real mixed emotions. You know, I think that it's important to understand that they're there to protect people and protect the safety of people. And I just want to really thank them. It was not an easy night, so thanks.
Renee?
Just a few things briefly. I did attend the NACO conference in Ohio, I learned that. And one of the things that happened was the county received the Soul Smart Award, and I'm not sure, is there going to be another presentation? Does anybody know about that?
We can put that on the petition list and talk about when we bring it back for a
Okay,
presentation.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
They just told me to go get the award, so I assumed that it was
Right.
going to,
Yeah, we'll bring it forward so that everyone knows about it.
because of our achievements in solar energy. And also, what the theme for this year for NACO will be ending the cycle of poverty and trying to move that needle on generational poverty. And then I also attended the State Association's annual conference, and that the theme this year for them is going to be let children thrive. So both of them, both at the federal, or the national, the state, and the state level, are working on poverty and children in poverty, that whole social justice panorama, which coincides with all the work that we're doing here in Orange County. And one of the things I wanted to also mention was we get a stewardship, I'm not sure if everyone gets the stewardship report from NCACC, but I think it would be good, maybe just as we begin the budget season every year, maybe in January, to have either staff or someone from the association to come and explain this and how we actually save money and they make money for us. And, and I'm on the Community Economic and Workforce Development Steering Committee, and one of the things that we're going to target, well, we focused on trying to get money for saving the appropriations for programs like CDBG and Home, and this coming year, we're going to also focus more on affordable housing. That's it.
Thank you. Barry?
In relation to the petition that Commissioner Markopoulos and I had about the rural buffer, we also wanted to put it in the context that it's part of a larger agreement, the joint planning agreement, and that people don't really even understand what that is and how it's established and how you can change it. And so we just wanted to do something more comprehensive than has been done in a while. We also had talked about a joint petition about tree preservation. And while the county does a good job, I'll pass this out. DEPR has an administrative policy for anything that it does that requires a number of things, including that on county property, for every tree that it cuts, it plants a new one, either on that property or on some other property. And this has gone through the Commission for the Environment. It was adopted in 2012, but that was the dark period of Orange County government. And it didn't get any farther than DEPR, and so I'm petitioning that this come back to us to be formally adopted for the entire county government. I also wanted to, in relation to what Mr. Meyer was saying, we have repeatedly tried to get a system, or I won't say we, where somebody in the Economic Development Office partners with any business applicant, so that if Mr. Meyer has difficulty trying to get a permit, that he would immediately be referred to the point person who would be his advocate. And maybe it would be Yvonne Scarlett, because she deals with small business. That would be up to Steve Brantley. But we should do that. We constantly have this irritation between government and people who are trying to do some entrepreneurial things that don't easily fit within standard procedures. And there should be somebody there who can help to translate, who can tell them who to talk to, and can help to expedite what's going on so that they can thrive as opposed to get frustrated and have to come to a commissioner meeting. This goes all the way back to when Maple View Ice Cream was first cited, and it still hasn't been resolved. Also, I hope that one of the parts of the petition for the celebrating the rural buffer is that we come back with signs that say that you're entering the rural buffer. There are some in the southern part of the county, but there are very few. And it would be another way to let people know that they're there. We're meeting as a follow-up of the Durham-Orange interlocal agreement regarding the light rail with Durham staff and officials in October about the Gateway Station and other parts of that agreement. And part of what we agreed to was that we would jointly plan the Gateway project and we would approach Chapel Hill about doing it. But I would like to ask the chair write a letter to Chapel Hill because it's going ahead and planning it without us and without Durham. And I don't, it's like the BRT, where it's something that we're very interested in. Our funding is going to help it happen, and we're not part of the process. So if I would request that we just let them know what we're doing so that they're not unaware of what our interests are. And finally, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go fast. Public access to public land. I know we put up some signs at the Green Track, but we have other public land, and I'd just like to get back a report, what's available to the public, and what are we putting signage up in the part of the Cedar Grove Park that's not open to the public yet, or McGowan Creek Preserve, or wherever, just to understand better where that stands. And then just 3 quick things. We had the first meeting of the Ag Summit Planning Group today. We're looking at President's Day in February, and perhaps at Orange High if we can make it happen. As Commissioner Rich mentioned, the members of the Solid Waste Advisory Group, who are your representatives, were there, and the Public Works directors from the municipalities, and the manager and Chapel Hill's manager. And then today we had a groundbreaking for an addition, $3.7 million addition to the Sportsplex, which we just came from.
So we'll refer those petitions to the agenda review. I see the mayor of Chapel Hill sitting here in the audience, so I'll follow up your comments, and I see you taking notes furiously, so we'll refer all of those that are petitions to the agenda review. Earl?
To follow up on Commissioner Jacobs' comment about the Sportsplex, this board and quite a few community members did meet for a groundbreaking ceremony about an hour and a half ago. Hopefully within 6 months, 8 months, that facility will be open. It will be a very good addition to a very good facility for all kinds of recreation, from swimming to basketball to pickleball, and I have no idea what pickleball is, but I plan on finding out. So any type of exercise needs, any type of sports needs almost can be accommodated with that facility expansion. I will compliment our chair, Commissioner Dorson, and Commissioner Jacobs on their comments and the history that they gave on that facility, and note that maybe about 10 or 15 years ago, maybe 15 years ago, a little better, that facility was on the brink of, these are my words, I consider it on the brink of collapse because it was in a state of disorder. Now, today, with some changes that have been made, it is gung-ho wide open. It's got thousands of members and hundreds of thousands of visits per year. So if you haven't been to the Sportsplex, if you're not a member of the Sportsplex, I would encourage you to investigate that. Also had an opportunity last week to attend a community meeting in Cedar Grove. I will commend Commissioner Price on helping put that together, and one of our staff, Michael Harvey, for providing some very good information to neighbors over some concerns that they had with some land uses and other issues within that community. And I feel like that and some other community meetings that we've had really provides very good feedback to the communities and lets them know that we are listening. I am very encouraged by the number of people we have in the audience, I say audience, with us tonight. Without your participation, and anyone who happens to be watching or maybe finding out about this meeting on other venues, I would encourage people to attend, because without public participation and without public oversight, this board will not do nearly as good a job. So with that, Commissioner Dorson, I would say hi-ho, hi-ho, it's off to work we go.
Thank you. I just have 2 or 3 quick items to mention. One is I'm going to be bringing a resolution for the board's consideration, hopefully before our meeting on the 19th, asking the board to consider taking a public position in support of the Dreamers and in opposed to the federal government's position to eliminate DACA, which is Deferred Action on Child Arrivals. That is something that is going to affect millions of families and people across the country, and many, many people here in Orange County. And so I'll be bringing that, I'll send that around for people's comments, but hopefully we could get that, try to push that through for the 19th. I also wanted to mention, I know we're going to talk about the Chamber of Commerce a little later tonight. It is worth mentioning that the Chamber of Commerce put out a very powerful statement. You were talking about Silent Sam, and not only asking that be removed, but put out a very powerful statement apologizing for that organization's opposition to the integration of public facilities in Chapel Hill and Orange County in the early 60s. And they should be lauded for that stance. And then the last thing, just as a report, I just want to mention over the summer, I've met twice with the mayors of Chapel Hill and Carborough and our staffs about the Green Tract and affordable housing. We made some real progress. The last meeting we had a real good detailed analysis of how we can best use the property to achieve the goals that we've set out. It was a little like the SWOT analysis we got from economic development about, where it makes sense, looking at slopes and stream buffers and things. And so we're hoping to be bringing something back to the boards, in the next few months. But it's been a long time, but it's very encouraging that we're making a lot of progress. So, all right. With that, we're going to, yes, that's right. She just has to say my name. So we have to, before we go on, I am asking for volunteers to serve on the Retreat Planning Committee for the 2018 BOCC Board Retreat. Last time around, everybody to my right served, and so I'm going to look to my left for volunteers to serve on the Retreat Planning Committee.
Are you to the left also?
Well, I am to the left, but not into my own left in this case. So.
We'll make it easy on you.
We can do it. Well,
We got it.
All right, so Commissioners Price, Burrows, and Markopoulos have graciously volunteered. No, Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Rich. Yeah. Penny, Mia, and Mark have graciously volunteered to be on the Retreat Planning Committee. Thank you all. I'm sure it will be wonderful. I don't want to call it the retreat, though. I want to call it the advance, because we're going forward, not retreating. All right, we skipped around on the agenda, so we're going to bring up, before we get to the proclamations and everything, we're going to do item 11A, which is the Animal Services Hearing Panel Pool Appointments. Mr. Murado, would you come forward? All right. So we have, Bob, do you want to present this?
I'd be glad to do that. The long and the short of it is that we have a number of vacancies. Some of those vacancies were created because the people who had been appointed actually did not complete the required training, and so after repeated requests, we decided it would be best to fill their positions. As I understand the item, there are 4 positions that can be filled this evening. There's a Chapel Hill position. There's an at-large position if Marcia Adams, who's currently serving on the hearing panel pool, is moved from an at-large position to a public safety position. And then there are also 2 other at-large positions. There are 3 other positions which I can say a word or two about after you decide how you'd like to handle those immediate vacancies, if you would like.
All right, so there are 4 vacancies to fill immediately, and then there are 3, we'll come to those other 3 first. So, well,
Correct. Ms. Abid was removed from the list because she's currently serving at your pleasure on the Animal Services Advisory Board, and we've limited Animal Services Advisory members' participation in the hearing panel pool to the 3 members that are appointed by you that serve as chairs for the panels themselves.
all right, so, and just to be clear, since we had, may I just ask quickly that, since we had folks that didn't complete the training, all the folks that are on the applicant list now have been advised that they'll have to complete the training and understand that?
I believe that the postings that we put out to recruit people indicating that there was required training for participation in the hearing panel pool, yes.
Penny?
The question, yes, so we have, Ms. Adams is staying on, so we're choosing 3 people from this yellow sheet be on here? Is that what we're doing?
If you look at, yes, ma'am, if you look at the applicant interest list, we did take off 1 name, and then if you look on page 11, which will be, we just kind of grouped them by areas in the county, make it
Helpful.
easier. Under at-large, only the first one, Ms. Abid, is no longer available to serve, but the rest of them are. And so we're
Okay.
trying to break them down, the town of Chapel. You could pick the 3 on the top, they could fill either town, Chapel Hill, or at-large, and the bottom one's just at-large.
All right, so what does the board want to do?
So it's 3 from this list.
Yes.
It is, but we broke them down on this sheet on page 11 in your abstract, just so you could see what the designations where they can actually fit in.
3 from that list, plus your decision to move Ms. Adams from the at-large position she's currently in to the position for someone who has experience in the field of public safety.
Yeah, why don't we knock that one out right now?
So
Someone make a motion on that
I make
one.
motion that Ms. Adams, position 8 at-large public health, is that correct?
Public safety.
It's actually an at-large position. She'll move into a public safety position.
Okay, so I move that she moves into the public safety position.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion about moving Ms. Adams to position 8? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes 7-0. Okay, now?
4 more?
Now we have 3 more. 3 more to appoint.
And one of those would be someone, excuse me, one of those would be someone from the town of Chapel Hill, because that's how that position is defined. And
There are 3.
there are
that
3 of
did.
those candidates that are listed on page 11 at the top. And then there would remain 2 at-large positions for you to fill if you were inclined to do so.
But the Chapel Hill people can also be at large,
Yes,
correct?
they can.
That's correct.
Okay.
Earl?
I'll just start with position number 9, BOCC appointment at large. I'll nominate Bonnie Hauser.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded for Bonnie Hauser to position 9. Any other nominations for any of the other positions? We could try to do this all at once. Mark?
I'll nominate George Goldbeck and Dr. Charlie Rowe for the other 2 positions.
Okay, you need to just say
George
which ones.
Goldbeck can be the Orange County at-large
9.
Okay, so George, you're nominating
This is
Goldbeck for
11.
number 11
Or-
and Rowe for number 4?
Number 4, yep.
Second.
All right, so that motion has been made and seconded. Are there any other nominations? All right, so I would recommend we take all 3 of these together, since there's no other candidates nominated. All right, so the motions are Charlie Rowe for position 4, Bonnie Hauser for position 9, George Goldbeck for position 11. Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
No.
Motion passes 6-1. All right, thank you, Mr. Murato.
May I say a word about the other 3
Of
vacancies?
course.
I would just recall for you that Carrboro opted out of the appeal process we established under the Unified Animal Ordinance. They did so because of their preference to maintain their own animal control hearing board. And so for administrative decisions that are made under the ordinance for people in Carrboro, those hearings are still being conducted by that board as opposed to the county's board. We still have 2 positions that are defined for Carrboro residents, so that may be something you wish for us to look at more closely as we proceed with this initiative.
Well, we have a work session just 2 days from now where we're going to be talking about boards and commissions. And it certainly would make sense to me that if Carrboro doesn't want to participate, there's no reason to, I would say, there's no reason to reserve seats on the panel for them. Now, we have 3 other vacancies, and we have 2 candidates on this applicant list. So, does anyone want to consider filling 2 of the 3 seats tonight, and then we'll have the board nearly fully stocked?
So they don't have to be Carrboro since they're pulling out.
Well,
Right.
I don't
That's fine.
think so, but
Okay.
is that, would you say, I'll defer to the county lawyer.
It's similar to other boards. If it hasn't been filled for a period of time, you can appoint someone else.
Is there a set period of time that we have in our policies?
It's 6 months, I believe.
6 months, so it's not quite 6 months for any of these positions. So,
That's fine. Were you looking for a motion, maybe?
well, the thing is, if the policy says we have to wait 6 months, then we can't make, I think it would be
Oh, okay.
inappropriate to make a motion today, but we can bring this back in the first meeting in October, and we could fill those other seats. Barry, then Renee?
Can we write a letter to the mayor of Carrboro and suggest that these seats are available, and if they're not filled by such and such a date, we will fill them?
I'd be happy to do that. Renee?
Well, my question was similar to that. Do people, or do we need to announce that these seats are open? Or has it been
Oh, there's
advertised
been
already?
PSAs.
We have
For a while.
consistently done so.
effort.
I mean, for these 2 positions,
We have consistently done so for these 2 positions as well as the other positions, including communications with staff in the town of Carrboro about these openings.
right, I understand about Carrboro, but now that, that it could become open, do we need?
That would, if we were to redefine them, if I'm understanding you
right.
correctly, then I would think it would be the pleasure of the board in coordination with the clerk as to whether we did that.
Okay. I just wanted clarification. I don't have an answer or a motion.
Well, I'm happy for us to keep looking, but we've got 2 people who have already expressed interest in being on the list, so I would certainly consider them at the top of the pile, but there's still another empty seat, so I think we should put out a solicitation noting that after September 30th, these positions are
I can
open to
contact,
anyone in the
do you
county.
want me to contact the town of Carrboro and let the clerk know?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that I'll write to the mayor and the mayor of Hillsborough,
Okay.
and I'll note that after September 30th, we're going to open these positions for
Okay.
anyone in the county. All right? All right.
Thank you very
Bob.
much.
All right. Now we're going to go back to item 4, proclamations, resolutions, and special presentations. First up is the Nature of Orange Photography Contest 2017. Board will recognize the winners and thank all the participants of the Nature of Orange 2017 Photography Contest. Lynn Hecht will make the presentation. Okay, yeah, great, we'll do that. All right.
Is there going to be a commissioner?
Yes, we're going to have a commissioner. Commissioner Burrows, why don't you go down there and hand out the certificates?
First of all, thank you for allowing me to do this presentation, but also thank you in advance for all the participants of the photography contest, those winners, for coming tonight. They're all here. Okay, this is our 6th annual photography contest. Photographers help document the beauty and diversity of our natural resources or show residents enjoying our parks and environment. All photos were taken in Orange County. 104 entries, 57 youth and 47 adults turned in photos. 3 volunteer judges evaluated the photos based on relevancy, composition, arrangement, focus, sharpness, lightness, and creativity. The adult winners are, this is our first place winner. It's called Sunset at Mapleview Farm, Charles R. Shepard II.
Mia, you have to turn around and pose for a picture.
That could be next year's winner, right there.
Second place adult winner was Snack Time by Barbara Driscoll. This was taken at Eno River State Park, Buckwater Trail. Third place was Blue on Yellow by Keith Newell. It was taken on the front step of his house on Winter Post Lane near Waterstone. We have, for each group, we have 2 honorable mentions. The first one for the adults is These Flowers Look Made for Me by Barbara Driscoll, and this was taken at NC Botanical Gardens in Chapel Hill. The next honorable mention was Morning Light on Fuse Ford, Charles R. Shepard II. And our youth. First place, Mellow Mushroom, was taken at her house in Cedar Grove, Cooper Bates. Second place is Daisy's Rays by Sarah Joy Brandt, and this was taken at Eno River Academy High School, where she goes to high school. Our first honorable mention was Okinichi Outlook by Lucinda Smiley, taken at the Okinichi Overlook, of course. Guest photographers. last but not least, for the photographers, our honorable mention, Beautiful Eno by Caden Brown, again, up at the Occoneechee Mountain. Almost forgot. Cooper Batts also had an honorable mention, the boxing turtle taken at the field by her house in Cedar Grove. I'm also wanting to thank our photographers. Our photographers were Laura Brannon, and Laura is here. Our judges were photographers, professional photographers. I really appreciate the photographers. They put a lot of time into compilating the results. And another photographer who's here is David Schaub. And the only person out of everybody who's not here is our third photographer, Holden Richards. So thank you to everybody. I would like to say that there's some really nice renditions of these photos hanging now at the library, if you haven't seen them, on Margaret Lane. And at the end of the week, on Friday, they'll come down, and by Tuesday of next week, they'll be up at the Hillsborough Visitor Center by the post office, and pretty soon, they're going to be up at the Chapel Hill Visitor Center. And so they get to lots of nice places, and it's nice to look at them. They're done nicely on foam core board. They're good size. They look really nice, right? You guys have seen them. Yeah. Next year, by the way, we are going to go to a new theme, and that's going to be based around nature still, but it's going to be parks and trails. And that's what we're going to be looking at for the theme in Orange County, parks and trails, which includes Orange County, Chapel Hill, Hillsborough, and all the trails and, you know, places to walk along the Eno, all these places in nature. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Those are great photos. Yeah, give everyone one more round of applause. All right, we're going to move on to item 4B, Family Success Alliance Impact Report and Update. Board will receive an update on accomplishments and evaluation findings of the Family Success Alliance's first 3 years and preview major endeavors anticipated in fiscal year 17-18 and projections for future fiscal years. Kobe Austin will make the presentation.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I know you all heard some highlights about the Family Success Alliance at your budget meeting in June, and that was part of the inspiration to have us back this fall. And I appreciate you having us back when you did, early on in the fall, so that I have the opportunity to be here. And just, you know, want to thank you for your concern that we have the resources that we need to do this work well. I think, as you know, it was very ambitious to take this project on. And as Commissioner Price mentioned earlier, NACO has recognized intergenerational poverty as a priority, and I look forward to learning what you learn from some of the other communities that are doing this work throughout the country. And also just, you know, you're ahead of the curve. This past week, I should mention, we actually heard from the Secretary of Health in Louisiana, who had heard about the Family Success Alliance and was interested in learning more about our work. And I was on a call with her head of the State Department of Children's Health and Behavioral Health, and at an hour and 10 minutes, I had to cut them off and say, I've got work to do. But so word about the work that we're doing here has been getting around, and it's exciting to have that interest from other communities to hear about the work that we're doing. So tonight, I'm going to, as Commissioner Dorson mentioned, talk a bit about what we've accomplished, share some highlights from our impact report with you all, talk about what we're headed, what we're doing now, and where we're headed. So I left you, you had in your packet a copy of the impact report. I also left a hard copy on your desks there. And you'll notice on the first page that we highlight the educational outcomes that we've seen. And there are two ways in which we do our work. One is through the educational work that we're doing with children, and that is supported and ballasted by the whole family approach that we have as we work with the parents and the siblings of those children. But we know that we do that work to help the child have a stable, healthy, thriving family that helps support their educational outcomes. So that's why you see the educational outcomes highlighted on the front of the report. The 219 number that you see there is the total number of kids that have been through the Kindergarten Readiness Program throughout the entire history of the Family Success Alliance. You also have a copy on your desks of the report that UNC's Frank Porter-Graham Child Development Institute released that looked at last summer's Kindergarten Readiness Program, as well as the cohort of comparison kids that they followed through this past academic year to look at their educational outcomes. I got a sneak peek last week at some of the quantitative findings from this summer's Kindergarten Readiness Evaluation. In between last year and this year, the evaluators had an opportunity to sit down with the instructors for the readiness camp and share some feedback, and there were adjustments that were made in the curriculum, and almost every measure saw statistically significant increases. More importantly, I would say there were some measures such as first sound fluency, which is a standardized measure that exists for incoming kindergartners. If children are below a 5 on that as they start the school year, you expect them to need some additional sort of remedial help. And 77% of the kids in our K-Readiness camp started the summer below that 5. So it was an average of 3.7 they scored. By the end of the K-Readiness camp, there was an average of 7.05 that they were achieving on that measure. So this also has, not just statistically significant findings, but actual practical implications when the children hit the school system. The next number you see, the 235, that represents the strong collaboration that we've had with the school districts to put on some of the summer enrichment programming for the older cohorts of children. So once they go through kindergarten readiness, we invite them back for those other summer learning opportunities. We also, for these past 2 years, and even more so this year than the past year, partnered with our Department of Social Services to use some resources that became available when the state actually issued them some funding to support camp opportunities for other siblings of our FSA enrolled children and other zone children. And so that's partly why you see that number is higher than the 219, because we were able to extend those opportunities to other children. And that included, for example, kids that in one case had a child with autism where we weren't necessarily able to serve that child through some of the school-based programming, summer programming that we were doing, but we were able through the DSS funding to place that child in a developmentally appropriate summer opportunity that would help him advance to the next school year. So we really appreciate that partnership and working with DSS on that. Kim Farrington is a teacher who has worked with the K-Readiness Camp now for 3 years. She has been with the Chapel Hill Carborough School District for a long time and was recently recognized as Teacher of the Year. And I just thought I would take a moment to read this quote. "When I started teaching the new kindergarten class in August, my life was great. I had 7 kids who started as leaders. It usually takes 3 to 4 weeks to build that, and I had 1 who really shined. If he had not been in the FSA summer program, it would have been very different. We had an existing relationship, so I knew his trigger points and how to help him excel." And this is the kind of thing that I think is really difficult for us to measure quantitatively in the kind of evaluation that FPG has been doing with us, but captures some of the qualitative impact that the relationship building is having through our summer programs. I know you all are familiar with our zone navigators, but it merits mentioning that I think, they're the heart and soul of our work in many ways. They have struggled themselves in many ways and come out ahead. They bring an urgency to this work. They bring a level of accountability to the community. They bring the voice of their lived experience and their truth, as well as the voice of the families that they work with directly, which is really important for us to do this work well. They look at their neighbors and they see their strengths and their potential and their resilience in ways that not everybody does. And so we're very thankful to have them on board and to now have 7 zone navigators. You can see their photos there. And the Navigator program enables us to work directly with families. So as you saw in June, we are currently serving 77 families. And with the summer programs having just wrapped up, we're currently recruiting the families from those summer programs into the Navigator program, so that this year we'll be working with 120 families and over 500 family members. We recently hired our first navigator, who herself was a refugee from Burma, and she and the relationships she had in the community enabled us to reach back to some of the cohorts that had cohorts 1 and cohort 2, and recruit some families that we had tried to work with before, used in-person interpreters, but really just didn't have that cultural connection to bring them into the Family Success Alliance in the way that we wanted to. And so she's been able to reach out to some of those families and enable us to work more deeply with that community. So we're excited about that capacity. And we also recently hired the parent of a cohort 1 family. So one of the first children to enter into the Family Success Alliance. She was a parent representative on our advisory council for just a hot second before we hired her into the program just a couple months ago. So that's Claudia Urena, and I'm going to invite her to come up and just share a little bit of her experience of being enrolled in the program, and now her perspective as a navigator in the program, and how she's seen Family Success Alliance change from the community perspective.
Okay, thanks for having me here tonight. I wanted to thank Kobe and FSA team for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. I'm Claudia Gerena. I came here 18 years ago. I got married here and I have 3 children. My second one was the first who was enrolled in the Family Success Alliance program. And I could see the difference between my first child and my second one. My first one was very afraid and shy and doing very low at school. And my second one, after he entered the kindergarten readiness program, he was ready to go. He is reading in a high level, writing in a high level, and doing wonderful in math. So I truly believe in Family Success Alliance, and now that they gave me the opportunity to be part of the team, I'm having like more understanding about this job and how hard it is. And how rewarding it is also to work in the community, and I have the opportunity to provide more to my community and make a difference in our children's futures. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you. Thanks.
So I'm going to transition now to talk a bit about some of the work that we currently have underway this year, but there is a lot of other information that's highlighted in the impact report related to some of the capacity we've been trying to build around racial equity and how we do that work well, around mental health and housing, and some of the services that our partner organizations provide. And Claudia, as we were sort of talking earlier, was talking about, she's done some of the parenting support programs and financial literacy programs that our partners offer. She did that as an FSA parent, and now she's in the position of connecting families that she works with to those supports and services. So I encourage you to take a deeper look at that. Right now, we are partnering with the County Manager's Office and the Department of Planning and Housing to support the Mobile Home Working Group. So as I think you all know, since last fiscal year, there's been a group that's been working hard to put together recommendations for you all for how the resources related to mobile homes and potential land banking and that sort of thing are utilized. And they recognize the need for more community voice in that process. And so the Family Success Alliance, through our navigators who have in some cases grown up in mobile homes, currently live in mobile homes, work with FSA families who live in mobile homes, had the relationships and the connections to be trusted people coming into those communities and collecting input and doing surveys with the residents to then inform recommendations that are made to you all. So we will present those survey results to you, I believe, perhaps in October, but at the pleasure of the commissioners and the county manager when it works best for you all. But that's, I think, an exciting reflection of the deep connections that we have in the community and the capacity that the county has through this work to get that type of input. We also, this current year, are looking at piloting an expansion into enrolling some families that have children 0 to 5 that haven't yet hit the school system. We know from all the brain research and child development research that we really need to be starting this work much earlier. And we had our advisory council last week endorse the allocation of some of our current navigator slots to be able to enroll those families. And so we're going to pilot this with our existing resources and then would potentially look at some modest scaling up in the next fiscal years to be able to continue that. If we were to immediately jump and blanket all of the 0 to 5 families in the zones with the Navigator program, it would mean almost tripling our program. And so we're trying to take a much more measured approach to piloting and scaling up, but figuring out how we can do that efficiently and well. We continue to partner closely with a number of nonprofits and other governmental agencies and groups throughout the community. One thing I wanted to highlight is we are on the cusp of launching our efforts to outcomes data management system with those partners. We have been using it with our navigators and our staff for over a year now and find it to be a very effective data management system. We have been working hard to get all of the privacy and confidentiality measures in place so that we're good stewards of our family's information and are able to roll that out through the data use agreements that we have with the schools and with our other partners. We also have been working on a collaborative fundraising process, which I'm sure you'll be excited about. Just last week, we held a workshop with our funded nonprofit partners to discuss what does it mean for us to fundraise collaboratively, what behaviors will we engage in or will we not engage in, because we know that these partners of ours that we work with very closely and we meet with on a monthly basis, that they have deep relationships with funders in the community, and we want to be able to build on those relationships. So we needed to establish a common ground that we had agreement for what it looks like for us to be respectfully competitive, how we look out for each other's best interests, and when it's appropriate to approach a funder on behalf of the Family Success Alliance, when we might suggest to a funder that they look to one of our partner agencies who might be able to provide sort of the specific service that they're looking for. And so we've had some important conversations around that and have some next steps coming from that that include the creation of a business plan that looks at Family Success Alliance direct service programming that we do, as well as the partners programming that we look to fill the gaps that are currently not being met. We also are looking to do some network mapping. So from that workshop, many of our partners agreed to go back and look at some of their current funders and see who might be a potential funder that could scale up and have embraced the bigger vision of the Family Success Alliance, because we know that with the big vision that we have the potential to approach bigger donors and larger foundations than one individual nonprofit might have. And so we're looking at some of the current funders, and we also will be working with our advisory council to do some network mapping with them, and wanted to invite you all as the county commissioners, if you know people in the community or foundations have connections in the community that might be a good resource for us to explore, we would love to have recommendations from you. So we will follow up through the county manager and with you all to pursue that. I'll just mention quickly, in terms of our current revenue, the general fund does continue to be our primary source of resources. That includes both what you see reflected here as the county appropriation as well as the health department appropriation. In terms of our projected expenses, what I wanted to point out to you, of the portion of our revenue that is county managed, If you look at the projected expenses, the majority of those resources are contracted out for direct services, and almost half of those resources are contracted out for the Family Success Alliance Navigator program. And I think that reflects sort of how core that particular program is to the work that we do. It's the direct connection with families, but it's also how we scale up those individual case management issues that come up to the policy systems level to be able to address those issues. Some of the funding leads, I'm happy to go into more depth in any of these if you'd like, but I will just talk I guess I'll talk about the prospects in the interest of time. We are finalists for the GSK Impact Award, so there were over 200 applicants and only about 24 received a site visit. We were one of those 24, and they will give the award to 10 organizations at $40,000 unrestricted, so our fingers are crossed about that. We continue to have strong interest from the Keenan Charitable Trust. Their budget meeting at which they look at allocations for North Carolina is in March of each year. And so we're hopeful that in January we will be formally invited to submit an application and that funding would begin for the next fiscal year. There is the possibility that that will require some matching funds, and we may be able to meet that requirement with some of our current resources, but we will be in touch with you as we understand that more in depth. We are also preparing an application for the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Prize, which would be $25,000 unrestricted. We also, one of our partner organizations recently was off singing the praises of Family Success Alliance in a meeting with the bank, and the bank is interested in making a modest annual contribution for the next 3 years. And I think I saw Dolores Bailey out here. She gets the kudos for that. And I think that's a great example of, as we build these partnerships, that it's not just our core staff that are out there looking for these resources, but as we approach this collaboratively with our partners, we have a whole collaboration of community members that are out there looking to support this work. And then, of course, we continue to look at local and national foundations and private donors. I have a meeting in 2 weeks, as long as I'm still around, with the executive director and board chair of a local foundation that is interested in Family Success Alliance. So the last thing I wanted to mention is that our current strategic plan runs through this coming June. So this spring, we'll be embarking on our next strategic planning process. We're excited that we'll be able to have deeper community engagement in that process than we did when we did this 2 years ago, because we now work more directly with more families and can find formal ways to bring them into the process. We also, when you look at our last strategic plan, it was very much nose to the grindstone, what's the direct programming or the direct sort of systems policies that we're planning to influence, but it didn't map out organizationally for us what it looks like in terms of decision-making about zone expansion and in terms of organizational structure. In terms of zone expansion, I do think, our current budget, the total, not just the county managed portion, but when you look at what's funding our partner services and evaluation, is about $1 million, and we're serving 2 of 6 zones. If you break it down, I do think it is, basically reasonable to expect that it would be about $500,000 to add an additional zone on at the level of programming that we're doing right now. So that does not include, the additional cohorts that would be added in each year. For the Navigator program and the summer readiness, for the current zones that we're working in, we're looking at about $150,000, $200,000 to be able to add those additional cohorts in each year. So I wanted to give you that breakdown, but also invite you were talking about your retreat planning earlier. I noticed that the 2 commissioners who are on our advisory council happen to be on the retreat planning team. So if, either at the retreat or at a work session next spring, you'd like us to engage you as stakeholders in part of that strategic planning process, we would welcome that opportunity.
Great, well, thank you. I'm gonna, before I open the floor to asking my colleagues if they have questions, I have a personal situation that I need to take care of, so I'm gonna ask someone to make a motion to excuse me from the rest of the meeting. Commissioner Rich, of course, will take over, and then I apologize to everyone here, but if one of you all would make that motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. That passes 7-0. Please, so you're in good hands with Penny.
Thank you, Commissioner Dorson.
Sure.
care.
I appreciate you sticking around for the presentation.
No, it was a great presentation.
And are there any questions for the presentation?
Yeah.
Two comments.
Commissioner Price?
Just to reinforce what you were saying about starting at age 0 to 5, and actually at NACO, they were even saying going 0 to 3, and they're saying, I don't know anything about brain development or childhood, but that's what they're saying, so I think you're on target. I know you're on target there. My other question, actually, I was kind of holding it, but then you kind of half answered it, but with the strategic plan, you would be trying to add additional zones, and I'm just wondering, because it is obviously a great program, and, as a commissioner, we would want to serve everyone, and is it possible to get, not from you, because I know you've got your hands full, but maybe from staff, what it would take to kind of expand this program to include the other zones and even actually the entire county, to be able to provide some of the services? It may not be exactly the same with the intensity, but, someone that maybe lives up in, if there are just a few families, for example, up in, Carr, that would need those services, what it would take to try to provide some of the key services for all of our residents, so that,
I'm happy to add a couple things, which is, you're not the only person in the county thinking that way, and in conversations, for example, with the Chapel Hill Carborough School District, I know they are exploring the possibility of replicating the kindergarten readiness camp with other schools. So I don't know that they have figured out what that will look like and what the resources would be, but I think they have seen some of the success of this work and are looking at how they can be champions in expanding it. And I do want to be clear, in the strategic planning process, I think we'll be figuring out what the decision-making process would be for if and when we expand, not necessarily, making the plan for expansion. I think the main constraint from my perspective right now are the resources that it takes to do it and being able to do it well. So our heart is with you.
yeah, and I guess it's going to, obviously, as you've shown in your slide, it's going to take partnerships, and so maybe it's something that the commissioners and manager and the two school systems can start looking at together. If we pool the resources, then that takes some of the burden off of you, but at least, and at the same time, it expands the program.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, Kobe, thank you so much, and good luck.
Thank you.
And we'll see you after that little critter is born.
Thank you. And thank you for your recent policy change around parental leave.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Good time to take advantage. Okay, we're going to move to 4C. It's the proposed resolution in support of a local, state, and national goal of 100% clean energy by 2050 and the creation of green jobs. And we have Jeff Thompson, who's going to... Brendan, okay, let's do it. Welcome, Brendan.
Thank you. Vice Chair Price and, Vice Chair Rich.
It's okay, it
excuse me.
happens all the time.
Sorry. Commissioners, great to see you. Thank you for having me. I'd like to, just give you a real brief, just a reminder of what this resolution is all about, and happy to answer any questions about it. But this would be a proposal to commit to transitioning the county, the state, and to the extent that we can promote it, the nation to move to a 100% renewable energy-based economy by the year 2050. This is a resolution that was brought by a group of Orange County residents in the spring, and was referred to the Commission for the Environment. Unfortunately, the Commission for the Environment approved the resolution one day after agenda review in the spring before the summer session, intersession. So this is our first opportunity to bring it back up on an agenda, and we're excited to do so. So let's see, this is The original resolution item was drafted by the North Carolina Climate Solutions Association, and then edited by the Commission for the Environment to include Orange County, to drive it home that this is a local issue as well as a state and federal one. But other than that, it relatively speaks well for itself. There is a scientific framework that it's based upon, a whole section of background materials that help to support it. The market is going this way. The costs for solar energy are falling dramatically, and in some places across the country are cheaper than coal energy and other forms of fossil fuel generation. So that's happening at a dramatically accelerated pace, and so when we're looking out to 2050, there will be market forces that help with this transition to a renewable energy-based economy.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions before we go to the public?
Well, now go to the public.
Want to go to the public? Okay, I have 4 speakers, or 4 people from the public. Ms. Kathy Kaufman? Welcome.
Hi, my name is Kathy Kaufman. I live off of Old 86 in Greater Carrboro. I've also worked at the Environmental Protection Agency as a policy analyst for 29 years. I'll be retiring this month, but I want to support this wholeheartedly, but I also want to stress that adopting a resolution is really a first step. And I would urge you not only to adopt the resolution, but to continue to find ways to very specifically implement it. There's an awful lot of expertise in this community. I was on Carrboro's Climate and Energy Task Force. I know Commissioner Markopoulos has a lot of expertise. There's a lot of knowledge about energy efficiency, renewable energy, transportation options, walkability, and all of those other issues in this community. And as we're in a time where the administration has decided to back out of our commitments under the Paris Climate Accord, I note that there were a lot of states and locals that stepped up and said, hold on, wait a minute, we're going to make these, we're going to keep our commitments and we're going to contribute. And I'll also note that change always happens from the bottom up. It doesn't come from the top down. And that it's really important what local communities do to create that change. And finally, just the fact that this has come up this week when we've seen the devastation of Hurricane Harvey, and we're about to see the devastation of Hurricane Irma as it bears down on Puerto Rico and Cuba and then Florida at the end of the week. I'll note the connection between what we do and the fossil fuel that we burn and the intensity and the flooding that we see in hurricanes. It's atmospheric science 101 that stronger storms are caused by warmer water, which has higher energy, and that the temperature of the Gulf is a degree to 1.5 degrees Celsius hotter than it was 20 or 30 years ago. All of those storms are stronger as a result. And also when there is warmer water, there is more evaporation from the oceans, and that causes a greater amount of rainfall, which is why we're seeing so much greater flooding. And I'll also note that the melting of the Arctic sea ice has led to rise in sea levels, and the Gulf itself is 6 inches higher than it was 20 or 30 years ago, and that leads to much higher storm surges, which we are seeing this week and are about to see again. So, like I said, as our federal government, and I work for the federal government, but we are now falling down on the job, and it is really up to states and locals to pick up the pieces and move ahead with the policies that are going to help us save the planet and save civilization. So I really urge you to do as much as Orange County can to be part of the solution going forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kaufman. And I believe that that's our goal also, is to not just pass a resolution, but to make sure that we are doing what we need to be doing. So thank you. Yeah. Ms. Kim Parachi? Did I say your name correctly?
Yes.
No, close.
I would like to add to one thing, one of Kathy's points. Right now, today, there are over 50 large fires in the West. So the global climate change isn't coming, it is here. Harvey broke records of its own. Irma is now the largest hurricane ever in the Atlantic. It's pretty huge. And I also want, Bill, will you talk about the Jacobson Plan? You're going to come up and talk. Will you talk about that? Okay. Because I want you to understand what the Jacobson Plan is in the 5 points. What I want to talk about is, to some extent, whether you approve this referendum or not, this is going to happen, because we're right at that tipping point where clean technology is going to be less expensive than fossil fuels. We're right there. So if in a year or 2 or 5, you're building a building or trying to save money, you're going to implement clean technology. It's just going to happen. I did a real quick research. East Hampton, Nassau, New York, Burlington, Vermont, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Columbia, Rochester, Minnesota, Aspen, Colorado, Greensburg, Kansas, Georgetown, Texas, all of California. There were several cities. Now the whole state has adopted this plan. Salt Lake City, Boone, Atlanta. And there are 3 countries. There are 3 countries on this planet that run on 100% clean technology. That's Bonaire, which is a country in the Caribbean, Costa Rica, and Iceland. Orange County can do this. It's here. I feel like if we adopt, or you adopt, this resolution at this point in time, it'll just reinforce Orange County's position in the state, in the country, as a leader, ahead of the curve, if you will. So I'd like to encourage you to do it. And I think I might have time over, but I'll pass it to Bill, and thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Bill Ward.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you. And you've heard in my prior speakers, from the prior speakers, about how urgent the problem is, and you get it almost all the time from the different sources that we have. But the problem we all face, particularly with the priorities I've been hearing that you have here, is how do you make decisions that actually can make a difference with regard to climate change? But I do want to bring forth the re-emphasize the urgency again. They talked about Harvey and Irma and the problems it was creating. Just since 1990, when the parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was 350, we're approaching 410. That's 60 parts per million in the last 30 years. If we do that again over the next 30 years, it's hard to say what this climate will be like. We'll be heading towards a Venus-like climate, which is in the hundreds of degrees. And also in this resolution, I don't think the date you focus on should be 2050, but should be 2030. That's 12, 13 years in the future. It'll take and if you look at the resolution, at that point it talks about being 80% carbon free. And it would take some real aggressive action to make that happen. And the problem that you face, that we all face, is, at least particularly in this state, is that the utilities are regulated not by the county, but by the state. And through the recent legislation that they passed, it's pretty clear that they're more interested in supporting the utilities than they are in helping the communities transition to renewable sources of energy. But I think there's things that you can do here in Orange County. I know that there have been, in the past, you've looked at going towards solar sources of energy to provide for county operations. But I think the economics were such that that was not adopted. But I'm hoping that in this new time that the prices will be sufficient, that the analysis will reveal that it does make economic sense for you. But I would encourage you, even if it doesn't, if it's on the edge or something, that it's worth making that extra contribution to try and be leaders in our county for making it happen, and for adopting electric vehicles to the extent you can. Technology is improving all the time where pickup trucks and other types of vehicles can be run off of electric power. So I'd really encourage you to move in that direction as much as possible.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is Mr. Bill Black.
Pretty much everything I wanted to state has already been mentioned by my predecessors here, but I did want to add the point that I think this is a very important issue to many Orange County residents, and it's sort of a silent, they may not be obvious, but I think there'd be a lot of support in terms of efforts that you made to address the goals of this resolution and other environmental goals. This really only pertains to energy. There are many other parts to the climate change problem. So I just wanted to say that this is important to many of us and our families, and I think you'd get a lot of backing and help from the public in carrying out something to address it. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Okay, Commissioner McKee, you had your hand raised with a question or comment?
Yes, let me just start by saying I'm going to support this because I think it is an admirable goal. I think it's something we can work toward, but I do have a question, and I don't know who to address it to. By saying create a transition to a 100% renewable energy-based economy by 2050, and I don't know who to address it to, but are we talking about the elimination of all fossil fuels and all uses? Because if we are, I don't see anything in here that addresses the need to retrain and address the needs of millions of people. It mentions millions of new jobs, but it doesn't mention the millions of jobs that will be eliminated, and the need to retrain those folks and how we're going to address their needs.
Well, thank you for that. I'll take the first swing at that, and then I will also look to the citizens who brought this initial draft. My sense is that this is not for all uses, but for all uses that are tied to energy generation. So not for automotive uses, if that's, is that correct? It would include automotive?
It says all uses.
Okay.
By 2050. I'm just trying to get a grip on how we're going to address the millions of people that lose their jobs. You're talking about making the same thing that happened with the buggy whips in the early 1900s.
Please.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not arguing. I'm just asking. I think we need to. I just think we need, not here, but I think we need to address that at some point.
Oh, okay, so you don't want to...
No, I'm not going to change the resolution. I support the resolution because I think it's an admirable goal. I just think at some point in time, that issue has to be addressed.
There are way more energy jobs in clean technology now than in fossil fuels. It's
I accept that, but
and so the people that will be losing their jobs in fossil fuels, it's just, I don't know if the individuals will be able to transition, but there are also I can't think of the website, but there are free scholarships, like energy companies are offering to train fossil fuel employees into clean technology jobs as we speak. So it's an admirable concern. I think it's being addressed.
At North Carolina State University,
Can you talk into the mic, sir?
North
Thank you.
Carolina State University, there's a major effort going forward to train people. They're offering courses there. And so a lot is happening to train these people. And it's, we don't know the exact way it'll happen, but I believe it will be addressed.
I just wanted to really quickly talk about the Jacobson Plan, which this is based on. This is simply clean technology, it's simply fuels, and yes, the county would be completely off fossil fuels by 2050, including cars. But the Jacobson Plan has 5 parts to it, I believe. Bill knows better. The first is conservation. The second is solar, wind, geothermal, and tidal energy. And so within some combination of all those sources of clean tech, every place in the world should be able to be fossil fuel free by 2050. He's outlined a plan for every state and 139 countries. In our state, our sources are wind and solar. And my husband and I personally are getting solar panels this year, 12-year payoff. It's gonna get cheaper.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind, if you want to send us some of those websites via email, that would be great, so we can move along with the conversation. Commissioner Markopoulos?
I have several comments which I'll wait on, but just in answer to Commissioner McKee's question, my son decided to go to Appalachian State University because they're a national leader in alternative energy technology and training. My nephew graduated from there. Several of my friends that are in their peer group graduated from there. They immediately got hired, many of them by Strata Solar and Cypress. Cypress is another part of that name. Anyway, another local solar company that has offices in San Francisco, New York, and Carborough. And the market is responding to the evolution of energy generation and the need for training for these jobs. And I feel confident that it will continue to. I mean, these are young people that looked around and said, what do I want to do? Where can I make some money? I mean, they didn't have something handed to them. They looked at the opportunities and they talked to friends of theirs who already had jobs in the alternative energy industry, and they said, I'm going to train for that, and I know where to go to do it. So it's happening.
If I could say something about jobs
Quickly, please.
as well. So my job in 2015 at the EPA was the chapter of the Clean Power Plan, was putting together the chapter of the Clean Power Plan that analyzed the employment impacts of the Clean Power Plan, and I'll note a few things. One is that coal is on the decline. It's not coming back. Due to mechanization, the cost of coal versus the cost of other, both natural gas and renewable energy, is such that it's not going to come back no matter what we do. So the real issue is natural gas jobs versus all the other jobs in renewable energy and energy efficiency. And the number of natural gas jobs, the job potential in natural gas is dwarfed by the job potential, especially in energy efficiency, which is basically buildings, but also by the job potential in solar. And North Carolina has thousands, and I forget 100, and I don't remember exactly how many solar jobs, but it's an enormous number, and it's more than we'll ever have in natural gas. So just from a purely selfish state point of view, but also from a national point of view, there's just a lot more job potential now. And there will be, I'm not going to lie, there would be natural gas jobs that would fall by the wayside, but they would be dwarfed by the number of jobs that would be created.
Thank
And
you,
that
Ms.
trade-off is always going to exist.
Thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Price?
Oh, I don't have a question, it's a comment.
Comment, please.
Okay. So I just personally wanted to thank, well, first of all, Kim Parachi had come to me about this, and I had said, well, you know, try going to the Commission for the Environment. So I want to thank Dave Stansel and all the members of the Commission for the Environment for taking this on, because there's no way I could have written this resolution. And also, I think, as was stated earlier, this is just the beginning, so all answers, you know, we don't have answers for everything. And when you're ready, I'll make a motion to approve. Oh.
Couple more, okay. Commissioner McKee and then Commissioner Markopoulos.
Well, yes, I'm not questioning nor am I arguing the benefit. And I think that over time, the transition will be natural. My main concern is that we do not ignore and that we do not let the fact that thousands, millions of jobs, and I'm not just talking about natural gas, I'm talking about the corner grocery that happens to be a service station. And I know that service stations without gas are not very profitable. I'm talking about entire industries. ExxonMobil, I'll use as an example, will go away, or they will have to transition to something else. They probably will transition because normally companies accommodate and adapt, or they die. So this is a very admirable goal. I think it will naturally occur regardless, just as is. I mentioned buggy whips. In the 1850s, there were no cars. In the 1950s, there were no buggy whips. So given time, I think that this will transition. I want to make sure that as we transition, we address the very real possibility that people will get hurt, and people will get hurt. Just like communities down east, when tobacco started transitioning out, when textiles started transitioning out, and when furniture started transitioning out, a lot of people either were too old or not able to adapt and got left by the wayside. I want to make sure that we don't leave folks by the wayside. And I'm not talking about folks living under the bridge. I'm talking about people just substance getting by. So that's why I asked, because there's no addressing that, and there's no need to address it in this, but we need to keep that in mind.
Commissioner Markopoulos.
A few quick points. I've had the opportunity to talk to Brendan Booma and Jeff Thompson and others on the staff about these sorts of issues, and I can tell you that the staff is focused on opportunities and looking ahead to battery technology and solar water and all the different techniques and strategies that we can use. So I feel good that we're on the right track, and we're looking for opportunities. We supported the light rail project, which is going to help mitigate climate change. The rural buffer helps mitigate climate change by keeping people from moving around too much and providing oxygen and all the benefits of the forest. So I'd throw that in since we're talking about that this year. And it was mentioned that we have this burden of being under a utility system, which makes it very hard for us to make local decisions in regard to our own power generation. And we've got to get to municipally owned utilities. We actually have one in Orange County. It's Owasso. And it is a model of a municipally owned utility. And if we can figure out a way to have electric utilities based on that same model, we will have done a lot. You know, like states like California, they can make their own decisions. They don't have restriction on home rule, right? So that's why they have so many, really successful municipally owned utilities. So we're fighting that battle with a nanny legislature that won't let us do the things that we really need to do. But I really appreciate you bringing this up. It's obviously a topic we need to think about every day.
Thank you, everyone. Commissioner Price, do you want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve this resolution.
Second.
We have Commissioner Price's motion, second by Commissioner Jacobs. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate you coming out. We're going to move along to number 5, which is a public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant Economic Development Public Hearing. The board will receive comments from the public regarding the Community Development Block Grant Economic Development, also known as CDBG, number 13-E2606, Morinaga American Food, Inc., and authorize the chair to sign the required grant closeout documents on behalf of the board. And Ms. Mikado, thank you for being with us.
Good evening. Ashley Mikado with the Orange County Planning Department. As you all probably aware, in 2013, Orange County was awarded a Community Development Block Grant from the state of North Carolina for infrastructure improvements related to the construction of the Morinaga production facility. Orange County was awarded $750,000 from the North Carolina Department of Commerce for the construction of water and sewer infrastructure. The county provided a match of $250,000 for engineering, design work, and grant administration. Construction totaled $716,903. Engineering, design work, and grant administration totaled $232,995. The total project was originally budgeted for $1 million in 2013. However, the final cost for the entire project totaled $949,898. In June of this year, Morinaga met the grant hiring requirement with at least 90 hires. As a result, the county was able to begin the grant closeout process, which requires a public hearing in front of you tonight. The recommendation before you is to open the public hearing and receive comments from the public, close the public hearing, and authorize the chair to sign the closeout documents on behalf of the board.
Thank you. Can I motion to open the public hearing, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. We have no one from the public that would like to speak, so board members, does anyone have any questions or want to make comments? No? Nope. Okay. I got a shrinking board. Still have a quorum. So I need motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, we have Commissioner Burrows and Commissioner McKee, second. All those in favor? Aye. And then we need a motion to authorize the chair to sign the required closeout documents on behalf of the board.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner McKee, second by Commissioner Price. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. And then we are going to move, I believe it was 8H is moving up to the regular agenda. So is that, you all ready?
Yeah. Well, Barry,
So just to make notes, Kirby and I have been talking during the week about this, and so he's prepared some information for us, so we're not catching him off guard. He is prepared. So Kirby, you want to take that away?
Certainly, thank you. I'm Kirby Saunders, the Emergency Management Coordinator with Orange County Emergency Services. Before you is a recommendation or a request for proclamation to proclaim September as National Preparedness Month, as we do annually each year. This year's theme is Disasters Don't Plan Ahead, You Can. The goal is to increase overall number of individuals, families, communities that engage in preparedness actions at home, work, business, school, and their places of worship. Throughout the week, each week we have themes that are national themes. This week, the focus is on making a plan for yourself, your family, and your friends. In regards to that, we are encouraging all members of our community, residents, businesses, and county staff to take actions to create a plan and to do things like sign up for emergency alerts. The OC Alerts program would be an example. And in case anyone is not aware, we have changed the URL for that to make it easier for residents to get to, and that is ocalertsnc.com. That takes them right to the registration page. There's lots of information on making a plan for adults, children, and even those with functional or access needs or special needs. Ready.gov is the best place for those information, and there's also the readync.org app that will help prepare ourselves and our family and friends to make a plan this week. Next week is focusing on planning to help your neighborhood and your community. There's a great new training out called Until Help Arrives, and the message there is pretty clear, as we just witnessed last week during Harvey in Texas and Louisiana, that the first 72 hours after a disaster are really on ourselves as residents. The resources in communities are often overwhelmed and overburdened to assist everyone in a time of need at every location. So Until Help Arrives is a great training opportunity. This focuses next week is on things like Until Help Arrives, or joining the CERT program, or taking activities to become more engaged in your communities. And we have a wealth of 2 courses on our website right now at readyorange.org for upcoming CERT training. The National Prepare-a-thon Day is Friday, September the 15th. That is the day that we encourage a strong action. Week 3 is on practicing and building out those plans, things like completing an emergency financial first aid kit, participating in an emergency drill, and learning more about community resources. And week 4 wraps it up with a Get Involved, Be Part of Something Larger campaign. And that is where we incorporate our campuses, businesses, and further outreach to our community to become engaged in emergency preparedness. One of the new tools we're launching, we're proud of this in Orange County, is a program we have borrowed from the city of Los Angeles, and that is the 5 Steps to Neighborhood Preparedness campaign. This is an online toolkit. We have printed several copies for folks who can't make access online, but it's designed to create a neighborhood emergency plan for a neighborhood of about 20 to 40 homes. All the tools necessary, including a plan template, are in this document and will be available online, as well as a facilitator guide, a neighborhood survey, a door hanger. All this material will be reachable. It's an empowerment tool for our community. We have a lot of interest in our community about how to prepare and steps that they can take to make sure their neighborhood is ready in that first 72 hours. And we'll be launching that towards the end of the month. And I was also asked to give a quick update.
So let's get a motion on this proclamation first, and then you can give us the update. So I need someone to move this proclamation.
I'll move a second.
Commissioner Price, Commissioner Burrows, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you. And now let's get an update, and hopefully everybody's listening.
Sure. Thank you. I included a Hurricane Harvey update, or Tropical Storm Harvey, where we are. As of 6 a.m. today, there are approximately 32,000 plus individuals in shelters in Texas, 1.3 thousand in Louisiana.
There are more than 135 homes that were affected. 22,000 of them have major damage, which in that case is greater than 5 feet of water in their residence. There's across 29 counties in Texas and Louisiana. North Carolina did respond with 2 Hilo aquatic rescue teams to Texas. That's a joint effort between National Guard and local community swiftwater technicians. In addition, North Carolina sent 5 swiftwater teams to Texas, which include a complement from the Chapel Hill Fire Department with 4 team members that went to Texas. All the deployed North Carolina resources are returning home or have already returned home and are re-energizing for potential future deployments like Irma. Regarding Irma, as you know, I'm sure, Irma reached Category 5 status today with sustained winds of 185 miles per hour. The latest forecast models do show a slightly more westerly projection than yesterday, and while they continue to indicate a sharp possible northerly turn, it remains too far out for North Carolina forecast at this point in time. We are aggressively monitoring this storm and encouraging preparedness since it is National Preparedness Month. In addition, we are aware of the many doomsday predictions that are currently floating around the community and on the web. And we are strongly urging all of us to follow very trustworthy sources, such as the National Hurricane Center. We are posting all of these updates and information as it is available to us. We're posting that to our community via our social media platform. The message is clear tonight, and that is to encourage preparedness. With or without Hurricane Irma, preparedness is essential, and we should do all we can to be self-sufficient for that 72 hours. Our motto is still the same, pretty simple: get a kit, make a plan, and stay informed.
Thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Kirby. Really appreciate it. I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrows.
Quick comment. So via the social media that y'all are doing, getting out these good, reliable sources, I learned something new, even though I lived through several hurricanes, which is learn how to turn off the natural gas. Never occurred to me before, so
Very
thank you.
And the water.
And the water.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.
That does remind us, so if you're not following emergency services on your Twitter feed, you should be, and just retweet everything they say along the way, because it is a reliable source, and that's really what we're after right now. Commissioner Price?
Yeah, I just wanted to, hopefully that we'll get the word out. I'm glad that this was taken off the consent agenda and you're making the presentation. But we do have, Todd McGee that can blast out information just as you can. But also, we do have a couple, in case people think that it's not possible, we do have a couple of communities or neighborhoods that have gone through this CERT training. And sometimes people think, well, we can't do it, but it can be done, and it has been done. So I think it, might help to highlight that, especially if we're going into, typically what I've experienced, because I'm not used to hurricanes until I moved here, but people, in your neighborhood do tend to be, very resourceful when there's, time of need. But however we can get the information out, especially for people that don't do Facebook and Twitter, other ways as well.
Correct. Yeah, we hope our 5-step program will help with that as well, and step them through their planning process in a neighborhood that would hopefully lead them to create a CERT team within their neighborhood. We do have 2 pilot communities that we are working with currently to pilot the program, and so we hope to have that wrapped up by the end of the month and have a success story. So.
Thank you, Kirby. I also want to mention that Josh Hollingsworth is here, is also a very good communicator as well, so we're in good hands with you guys. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, so now we are going to move back into our regular agenda, and it is 6A, even though we just made that last one A, but we are on 6A, and this is an update on the FY 2016-2017 county expenditures to the Chapel Hill Carrboro Chamber and the Hillsborough Orange County Chamber, and recommended a County Chamber of Commerce membership dues. We're going to receive the information of the expenditures, and Gary Donaldson is going to lead us in that discussion. Thank you, Gary.
And I may add, you have in your package a revised abstract. There's a slight change there. The original abstract has the attachments.
So the change on this is just the name of the Hillsborough Orange County Chamber, is that correct?
Correct. It's
So that's
the-
all that's
it's the
been changed,
Hillsborough-
but
Hillsborough
all
Orange County.
the rest of the abstract?
Commissioner
Yeah.
Jacobs for pointing that out.
Thank you.
So at the June 20th board meeting, you requested the manager to come back in September with a report both on the FY 2017 expenditures for both chambers and also a policy on chamber membership dues going forward. So as a matter of background, if you go to attachment 1, attachment in your package, the first part is the expenditures for FY 2017, and the expenditures for both chambers, as you note on attachment 1, is for the Chapel Hill Chamber, $21,503, and Hillsborough Orange County Chamber of Commerce, $6,000. You'll also note there, we took out travel because every other year there is a intercity trip. This past fiscal year, it was to Boulder, Colorado. That amount was $11,945. So we do think it important just to take that component out. And you see the expenditures there is under the Partnership for Sustainable Community, which is a nonprofit of the Chapel Hill Carborough Chamber. So going back to the PowerPoint, what we did is, again, going back to the 20th meeting, you asked us to identify and suspend all Chamber of Commerce payments except for the basic membership to each organization. You also requested that we establish one county membership each for both the Chapel Hill Carborough Chamber and the Hillsborough Orange County Chamber. You requested that this be administered through the county manager's office. Also at that meeting, you wanted to understand better the various levels of membership. So you can see for Chapel Hill Carborough, the highest membership is their champion membership, which is $30,000. And one of the key benefits is you get 50 tickets to use for annual events at the chamber. The next level is the investor membership at $15,000 and associated 30 tickets. Then there is the community leader, 8,520 tickets, which is what we are recommending. And the other three is the builder membership at $5,900, 12 tickets, the business leader, $3,900, and the business builder, $1,250. And again, you see in the PowerPoint the benefits there. For the Hillsborough Orange Chamber, they have 5 levels. The trustee is $5,000. Most of their benefits come in the way of online marketing. And at the trustee level, $5,000, you get a 25% discount on their chamber website advertising. Foundation level is $3,000. There's a 20% discount. The cornerstone at $1,000, which is what we're recommending, is enhanced, is a 15% discount. The champion membership is $500, a 10% discount, and the entrepreneur is $200. So this page in the PowerPoint, slide 5, is the manager recommendations. Again, we are.
Well, I think we have that in our package. I don't think we need to read that. We have all read that in our agenda. Is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Questions?
I'll move the manager's recommendation.
Second.
I actually have a question.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Since I'm taking the chair place, I don't know how to ask myself to ask a question yet, so I will. After reviewing this, I think that it's important that we balance out what we're paying to each chamber, and the way that I see that we did it with the $8,500 and the $1,000 going to Hillsborough doesn't feel right to me. It doesn't feel balanced. It feels like we're spending a lot of money in the Chapel Hill Carrboro Chamber, and we are not in the Hillsborough or in the Orange County Chamber. So I would like to suggest that, and thank you, Ms. Manager, for listening to the board and coming back with your recommendation. I, however, would like to have put something an alternate recommendation in there to go on for Chapel Hill Carrboro, I'm sorry, for the Chapel Hill Chamber, go to the business leadership at $3,900. And that gives us the complimentary tickets to major programs at 8. There's 7 of us, so that covers us all to be able to go to every single function. The 4 or 5 benefits on the bottom, we don't particularly use, so we can certainly advertise for ourselves. So I'd like to take that $2,600, take $2,000 of that dollars and put it towards the membership benefits for the Hillsborough Chamber, which would be a foundation membership. And then that, to me, seems more equal, that one chamber is getting the $3,900 and the other would be getting the $3,000. It seems to me that we're on that level playing field with each them. And with the remaining $2,600, I would like to leave that in the pot for the manager to have for additional tickets that she might need to buy throughout the year. So that would be my recommendation.
Moved and seconded.
Yeah.
I believe Commissioner Burrows.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Burrows, I'm sorry.
So I moved and you seconded,
Yes.
so I think that's
There's
what's
a
on the
motion on the
table.
floor.
And then you can
So you moved what?
The manager's
manager's
recommendation.
recommendation.
But that's before I made the comment, so I didn't call on you to move the manager's recommendation.
However you want to handle it.
I thought we had
Well,
a
go
motion on the floor.
There was, I didn't call, I was looking around, and I explained that I needed to I wanted to make a comment. Is that correct, or did I not do that?
Well, now she can make a motion, right?
Just make it again.
That's the question.
Make it again.
Okay,
Was it-
I'm going to go ahead and make my motion.
Sure.
You now recognize me. I move the manager's recommendation.
Okay.
I'll second it.
And, okay, so that we have the manager's recommendation second, and I'd like to amend that to what I had just said. I need a second on that,
Second.
and I have a second.
Can I just make
not
one
an amendment.
clarification?
Please.
And I don't know, maybe I misheard you, but the membership isn't 8 tickets for every event. The membership is 8 tickets for the whole year. So because the other membership that we currently get is 20 tickets, but it's for the whole, it's not every time there's an event, it's just 8 tickets. But that,
Okay. fine.
just
Thank you
for that
I
clarification,
appreciate
so
it.
everybody understands that, and that, you know.
Commissioner Price, Commissioner McKee.
I think you had your hand up first.
No matter. I cannot vote for the amendment to this motion. If we want to make it equitable, let's just raise Hillsborough's membership up to a foundation membership for $3,000 and leave Chapel Hill where the manager recommends it at. That will help Hillsborough. They are a good partner. I see absolutely no reason to reduce the level that we are contributing to Chapel Hill's Carrboro Chamber of Commerce. They have been a good partner. They have worked with us. They do not necessarily have to agree with every decision that we make, nor do they all have to always walk in lockstep with us. But they have been a good partner. They have been very supportive over economic development. They have pushed for that. They helped in the recruitment of a major company in the past year that I was involved in. And so I'm not going to support any effort to reduce the amount that we are doing as a base base membership to Chapel Hill. We are, in effect, reducing their membership by taking out department memberships.
Commissioner Price?
I basically was going to say that. something similar, that I,
So is
that
there-
I don't mind increasing Hillsborough, Orange County to some extent, but
Okay.
to me, I don't see where we benefit from decreasing from the Chapel Hill, Carrboro, Orange County.
Commissioner Burrows?
So, wherever it's procedurally appropriate, I would be willing to amend my motion. Thank you.
So,
In order to add to
And
the
at the
3,000.
proper time, I will ask for that amendment.
But I suspect we could use some procedural
so we have a
help over
motion on the
here.
floor, we had a second motion on the floor, and now we have an additional amendment.
Well,
Tell me
when
where
it's
we are.
appropriate.
So a motion, a second, and the original motion can be amended through friendly amendment at any time up until the vote. So if this is a friendly amendment, and both motion maker and seconder accept it, then it's fine to accept this third option as the amended motion.
So what happens to the second suggestion that was brought up and seconded? Does that just go away?
That just goes away if the amendment, as long as there hasn't been a vote, if the amendment is accepted by, was the
motion.
seconder the same?
Yeah, the motioner.
No,
No,
the original motion was.
He hasn't accepted.
Commissioner Burrows and then Commissioner Price. Then I made a second motion, and then Commissioner Jacobs seconded that. And now Commissioner McKee would like to come up with a third motion,
Not until,
an amendment, I'm sorry.
not until this is taken care of. It's not in order for me to do anything at this point.
That's correct. That part, I'm sure, is correct.
See, he hasn't done anything. I will.
So do we?
I was just
So
expressing how I felt.
we need an action on the first motion that had a second, and then there would be an action on the second motion that had a second. Actually,
Second motion first, right?
the second motion, was that made as an amendment to the first?
Yes,
Then that is the first action to take.
that's what I
the
thought.
second motion.
Okay, so we're going to vote on that first, okay? So
Wait, no, Mia
the
has,
motion- the
Mia
motion
has
that
to
I
accept a
made-
friendly amendment.
We can do
Well,
the
the motion that I made-
first, and then I'll add that later.
The motion that I made and Commissioner Jacobs, yes, Commissioner Jacobs.
After listening to everybody, I think Commissioner McKee made a good point. I think we can increase Hillsborough, Orange County without necessarily decreasing Chapel Hill, Carrboro. I agree that generally speaking, the organization has been a good partner. And I don't think we want to send the message that we're trying to punish them for something, even though ...
Okay, so we're going to vote on the second amendment, second motion, second amendment first. So all those in favor say aye.
Wait a minute, what is
Aye.
the second?
The one that I made.
Okay, tell us what it is.
The one that I made to reduce the chamber to 3,900 and increase, that's at Chapel Hill, to increase Hillsborough to 3,000. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against?
No.
No. Okay. Now we're going to go back to the first motion.
The original motion.
With the friendly amendment.
And I will offer a friendly amendment to raise Hillsborough's membership to the foundation membership of $3,000 and
I do
And,
too.
and the community leader remains for Chapel Hill at 85.
yes.
Correct?
So that's the motion.
Right, and I accept that.
And I
the
do too.
seconder.
And Commissioner Price, you had the second?
Mhm.
We're good. All those in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, no?
Pass.
We're good? Thank you, Gary. That wasn't too bad.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to go to 6B, and that's county property designated for sale as affordable housing. The board will consider designating the house located at 1119 and 1203 Highway 70-A, Hillsborough, North Carolina, for use as affordable housing and conveyance of these properties to nonprofit agencies. And, oh, great, we have Jeff and our new director, Ms. Hampton. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Jeff Thompson, Director of Asset Management Services. I'm here with Cheryl Hampton, and we're going to be speaking to you about these conveyances and answer questions about the program. We also have Dolores Bailey here with Empowerment, the Executive Director, who can answer questions as well. I've got some visuals on the screens and at your places, just to give you an orientation. This is in your packet. The highlighted yellow area is where the houses are that you saw today before the meeting. These are pictures of the two properties. The one on the left is the 1203 house, the one that's being contemplated to convey to empowerment. And the one on the right is what we call the block house. That's the property that can be moved, but we're still studying that transaction. As you saw this afternoon, firsthand, these units that you're being asked to convey for affordable housing on other sites, in lieu of deconstructing these units and disposing the materials in the landfill. The houses on the property, with some rehabilitation, are both suitable for affordable housing. The cost of moving and rehabilitating the structures are two suitable parcels nearby, as in the case of the home currently located at 1203, are less than new construction for similar structures. Additionally, what's a little obtuse is that the embodied energy, when these houses were originally built, are going to be moved so that energy taken is not going to be replicated in building a new house, both the deconstruction and the reconstruction of a new place. And that's considered much more sustainable, environmentally responsible. I'll ask Cheryl to speak now about the transaction with Empowerment, Inc., and also other programs that highlight why this is a good practice for Orange County.
Thank you, Jeff. Good evening again, Commissioners. Just wanted to say the funding for these houses, in working with our nonprofit Empowerment, we will be using existing rehab funds as well as possibly some program income funds that we have on hand to do this work. You saw them this evening. I think it meets several of the goals outlined by this commission previously, and so I'll stop with that and see if you have any questions.
Questions? It was good to be at the Sportsplex tonight to see these properties. Okay, so what we are being asked to do is to approve sending, we're taking the manager's recommendation that the board approve the resolution designating the houses located at 1119 and 1203 on Highway 70, Hillsborough, North Carolina, for use as affordable housing and conveyance of these properties to nonprofit agencies. And we know that 1203 is going to be moved into the Empowerment.
Terrell Road.
Terrell Road.
Terrell Road.
Thank you. And Dolores, do you want to say anything?
And then I do have two questions.
I'd like to say thank you first and foremost, because we are going to be able to add another affordable house to the inventory, which we need so desperately. And what wonderful efforts and collaborations with the county and with Hillsborough to get this house, to identify this house. We had a vacant lot on Terrell Road, and we were able to, it was available for this. They came up with the idea. They've worked really hard on making this happen, making the move happen. I am really excited about this. And I promise to get the same caterers that came today when we do open house at this one. But we are really excited about this, so thank you.
Commissioner Price.
What about the other house? Where will that be moved? When? How?
The other house is an attractive candidate. It's structurally a stick-built house with a wrap of concrete block, whereas previously we thought it was a concrete block house. And it's also up on a pure foundation, which means we can get under it. The company that's moving the 1203 house has looked at it and feels like that it can be moved locally, and we're in the process of studying where it can go and when it can go. We've got about 6 weeks to get it off the property before the schedule, before it stands in the way of the schedule for the field house.
So will you be coming back to us when you decide on the nonprofit to take it, or?
This
How
action
does that
allows
work?
the conveyance of that property, but
Pardon?
this action allows the conveyance of that property, but we would come back with a report as to what its disposition is. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And just one question in general, are we going, I know we've been through this before, but can the county put any restrictions or attach covenants to the houses so that they remain, once they're rehabilitated and sold, that, at the time of a resale, that they remain affordable? maybe for at least 40 years. I know the banks, some of the credit agencies are saying they don't want to do 99-year lease, but for 40 years.
I'm not sure about through the legal process of conveyance, but I can tell you based on the funding source, we can put some restrictions that it remains affordable for a number of years, and we would look to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bailey, did you want to add to that?
That actually is very typical. That's what we do. We'll make a performance agreement but when we accept the properties, just as Ms. Hampton said. That happens every time we share or use either CDBG money or home monies or any of the sources from the counties or the cities. There's always that agreement that it will remain affordable as long as it's with us. If we decide not to exist anymore, it has to go to another nonprofit that's doing the same kind of thing. And one other thing, I did want to thank Interim Director Annette Moore, because she's the one that had the vision for making this happen, and that's how this all got started.
Yeah, I trusted you on doing that. I was thinking about the other house, not, I didn't know what was going to happen with that one.
Anytime you do that with any nonprofit, we've got to have that agreement with you all.
All right, additional questions? Commissioner Jacobs?
I just wanted to thank staff and point out we have done this before. It's a while ago, I guess you would remember, Jeff. The caretaker's house at Little River Regional Park moved from Heritage Hills because it was in a floodplain. So that's about as far as it could go from one end of the county to the other. So I'm glad we're still using this technique to save housing for affordability.
Commissioner Markopoulos?
I'm curious, has there been much thought into moving houses that don't initially belong to the county, finding houses that might be getting demolished, that might be sold for $500, whatever, and moving it to a county property?
That's certainly something we can look at. I am working with staff to look at some replacement policy for replacement housing for any time we encounter a house that is too bad and the after rehab value will not come up enough once we put a number of dollars into renovating it. But we will certainly look at that as an alternative policy to add in our toolbox.
Great, thanks.
And I'd like to add, when you move the house, I think it would be a really cool thing to make some kind of video and just to let people know that we are saving homes and they are becoming affordable houses. I think it would be, you and Todd can get together and.
Yes, ma'am, we're going to plan on
Something really cool.
a videography of all of the steps, including
Yeah.
the steps that you saw today, because they're actually taking the steel and putting it under the foundation for the 1203 house. And in your packet and on the screens is the route that we're going to be taking from the Sportsplex site to Terrell Road.
Very cool. Commissioner Jacobs?
I just wanted to, whatever it would be, not second, but support Commissioner Markopoulos's idea. I think it might be really interesting. Maybe there are other places that already have done this, but there are a lot of people who are tearing down a house to build a larger house in Orange County, and they might be willing, rather than have to mess with deconstruction and demolition, to gift something that they could take a tax deduction for, and we could actually get a good, affordable unit out of it. And I don't know how much legal problems that might cause, or how much logistical problems that might cause, but, especially as we get closer to looking at what we're going to do as alternatives for manufactured housing, to actually have some houses that we could call upon and move might be either a good interim solution or part of our solution.
We will look at that, yes.
Commissioner Markopoulos, do you want that as a separate petition? Or do you want to attach that to this manager's recommendation? Because
I think maybe a separate petition would make sense.
I think that would be
right?
best.
Yeah.
Okay, so can I have a motion to accept the manager's recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Jacobs, Commissioner McKee seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
And all against? None? Okay. Commissioner Markopoulos has a petition that the manager has written down, and we'll move forward with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Okay. Let's move to 6C Chapel Hill, extraterritorial jurisdiction. The board will consider approving sending the town of Chapel Hill a letter in support of the town's proposal to move forward to a public hearing regarding extensions of its ETJ over 184.9 acres of land in the northern portion of town. And Ms. Hulse, you're up. You're up.
Thank you.
Literally.
I'm Perdita Holtz with Orange County's Planning Department, and as you stated, we're here tonight to consider transmitting a letter of support to the town of Chapel Hill for the town to move forward to a public hearing regarding possible extension of its extraterritorial jurisdiction over approximately 185 acres of land in the northern portion of the town, and the map that is part of your agenda materials is up on the screen here. There is about 66 acres over in the Sunrise Road area, and the remaining 119 acres are in the Millhouse Road area, which includes about a 70-acre parcel that the county owns that has been talked about as a future park, a county park. So, so after the town holds a public hearing, which is expected to occur in either October or November, the Board of County Commissioners would then be asked to adopt a more formal letter of support, or resolution of support, I should say. This first step is actually not required by statute, but it's something that Orange County and the town of Chapel Hill and Carrboro have kind of done over the years, so that everyone's informed about what is going on with any ETJ extensions. The board may recall that back in February, staff, was at this very podium introducing these possible amendments to you. And there was actually at that point discussion of some possible amendments in the southern portion of town, down here at 15501. When these possible amendments were talked about by the town at one of the May council hearings, or meetings, I should say, the council indicated that it would like staffs to study that area a bit more because they weren't quite sure that they wanted all of the acreage to be changed to rural buffer, because there are some existing commercial uses down at the intersection there of 15501, and I think it's Old Leicester Road, but I don't recall if that's the exact name. So currently that entire 270 acres is outside of the water and sewer primary service area. Mayor Heminger is here tonight, and I believe she came for this item. She's nodding yes. And so the recommendation is for the Board of Commissioners to approve sending the letter in attachment 2 to the town, and the letter supports the town moving forward to setting a public hearing on these potential ETJ extensions. With that.
Any questions before Mayor Heminger comes up? Okay, Mayor, please.
Thank you, and thank you for letting me speak on this. I thought it might be better. I saw the letter in the packet, and I think we're getting lost in the terminology. When our council met, when this was brought forward to us, it wasn't our interest to undo rural buffer or to change it. What we were only interested in were specifically the two parcels. One, the Sunrise Road area, wanting to change it from transition to ETJ such that if a habitat project came through, they wouldn't have to go through 2 review processes, which takes time and resources for them to do. That was our only interest on that parcel. It wasn't in changing terminology. It was only in doing that process. We're happy to move forward with that if you were willing to move forward. The other parcel at Millhouse Road, the only conversation we had was we would love to see this become a park someday. We know that it was purchased for that reason and talked about it. When I was commissioner, we talked about it being 6 athletic fields, some kind of park amenity. And in dealing with the Visitors Bureau study, sorry, Laura, throw you in there, talking about things that could be both beneficial to our own citizens and demand generators, like a tournament, like you've heard today with the Sportsplex, it needs to be a facility that has bathrooms that are connected to water and sewer. I've attended many across our state. The ones that are on septic that host these big events and have hundreds of people coming, when you overrun a septic system, that's really not a good scenario to have. and it's not being a good steward of our watershed. So that was our wanting to do that. We were told by staff the only way to do that was to change it from rural buffer designation into ETJ. We would prefer another way. That's why I don't like the letter in here. We would prefer to ask staffs to work together to change, if we can already do it under our own designation now, the essential public services definition, to change that in such a way that it would allow bathrooms in public park facilities. That's all we were going for. So we weren't trying to change rural buffer. We weren't trying to open this all up for negotiation and any development whatsoever. Our only interest was in that. The other little triangle piece, we haven't even had a discussion. We have no idea. We're not ready. We don't need to change it around. And I'm sorry, my letter coming forward didn't really convey that, and then Chair Dorison's back. I think we're in this conflicting terminology versus intention. Intention is to be able to find a way to work to see if we can find a way to have public restroom facilities on water and sewer. Since there's 5 entities that would have to agree to that, takes a lot of time. And so if we got started on that discussion, there may be opportunities to move forward with a park at some point in time. I know that on your capital plan, it's not ready to be done in any time in the near future, but I will tell you there's some public-private partnerships and ways to do it out there that might move us a little faster along that path and with less cost to the county. We're exploring that and moving forward with such an agreement at the Homestead soccer field area in an agreement which we were happy to share with you, where the soccer fields or soccer groups are paying for the infrastructure improvements ahead of time and getting reimbursed over a 10-year period in rental fees back. We actually still come out with a win from the town side because the fields will be able to be used more often, therefore generating more rental income. So there's other possibilities out there. So that was really what we were trying to ask. Is there a way that we can start the discussion to see if there's an opportunity to just change the designation on the Millhouse Park project to allow for public, essential public services to include bathrooms for parks we don't want to have a hearing about changing the rural buffer. That was never our intention. And on the Sunrise Road property. The other, like I said, the other parcels, and then the southern part of the district, we haven't even looked at it. We hadn't had a conversation other than we need to figure out what's there. So we sent back to staff, can you tell us what's down there, what you think about? It is a transit corridor. What opportunities may be there for affordable housing? What opportunities are there for more rural buffer protection? We just even haven't gotten there. So that's kind of what we were trying to ask is there a way to move forward with having a conversation? So I don't think these letters do that. So
No,
sorry.
they don't.
That's why I'm here.
It's like emails. You never know the tone in them, so you don't know what's going on. So.
Well, I think terminology held us back.
I think I
When we were
agree.
told by the staff that you have to apply to do it this way, and there may be other ways, and we'd like to see if there are.
Okay, let's open up for questions, comments. Commissioner McKee. Chair McKee.
That's interesting designation.
Just like wearing there, yeah.
I'm just wondering if there is a reason that we could not send this letter. I mean, I understand it, maybe the terminology doesn't address all the issues, but
Commissioner
does it-
McKee, can you put your microphone down?
Sorry about that. I'm just wondering, and I guess I'm asking the attorney, would sending this letter lock us in on something that we need to decide before we send a communication, or can we send this and work things out? Because all this does is start the conversation formally, I believe.
That was going to be one of my questions. The letter itself, I don't interpret as an approval to proceed with an expansion of ETJ. So I was going to ask that myself. But if the letter is the only thing the board votes on tonight, then I think that starts the public hearing process where Chapel Hill can gather more information. But the letter is not written in a way to approve expansion.
Thank you.
Questions? Additional comments? Commissioner?
Given that the letter says it's just supporting the town on moving forward on setting a public hearing for the extension.
But we weren't planning on doing that, so I'm trying to tell you, that's why this letter makes no
Doesn't
sense.
make any sense.
We were not planning to hold a public hearing on changing the terminology from rural buffer to ETJ. That was not our intention.
So we need that would need to be amended.
Yes, our intention was just how do we have a conversation about a better way to do this? That we were not, it's not on our agenda to hold a public hearing about this at all.
So now that my brain is catching up with what you're saying, you don't need a letter. Do you need a letter?
It would be nice to have a letter saying you'd be willing to have staffs work together, and I even suggested we bring something back to the Assembly of Governments that could be discussed if that's acceptable, I don't know. Then all the governments are there and can hear about this definition change, if that's a possibility.
So what I'm hearing the mayor say is that she's not following the public hearing concept on here, and what she's asking us to do is to bring this back for staff to work together on possibly terminology, but also a path to find to focus in on this one piece of property.
Yeah.
As well as the Sunshine property, to let that go so we don't have double time when and if habitat does come.
Because just to build on, if we send this letter, I think the community is going to feel like we're going to hold a public hearing whether we keep the rural buffer or not. That is not a good message to send on the 30-year anniversary. That's not what we want to do.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Yeah, that was my first question. Can we get this restated and resent to us so that if we're forwarding something, it's what we actually mean? Because this is more alarming than clear.
Correct.
Perdita, what's the effect of going from rural buffer to ETJ as far as the control of the property?
As far as control of the property, from a planning and zoning perspective, it would be changing from county jurisdiction to town jurisdiction, and they would extend whatever zoning districts over the property that they would have a public hearing on for that.
So I would suggest to the board that we do that very cautiously, because we don't even have a plan yet for the park. We don't know if the governments are going to talk about putting a transfer station there. I think it's one thing to have a conversation about how we might extend water and sewer, and that one possibility might be going from rural buffer to ETJ, but to actually go forward to be ready to do that before we know what the consequences are, I think is a mistake, because we can approve our own park, whereas Chapel Hill has different standards than we have, and I'm surprised, frankly, that our planning staff hasn't even pointed this out. It's just been almost totally mute on this point. And so I would urge us to find some, I'm not opposed especially to advancing these other parcels, but I'm not comfortable moving one of our properties into having a process in which we indicate our willingness to move one of our properties into someone else's jurisdiction until we know what it is we want to do with the parcel. Because I'll give you one example, one of many. When we developed the Seymour Center, it was wooded out on before your time, Ms. Mayor. It was wooded between the building and the street, and under Chapel Hill standards, we had to clear cut everything that was there and then replant little trees. We might not have done that under our planning. So I'd rather try and keep some control of our property until we know what we want to do. And we could figure out a way to say this so that we want to work together to move forward to make this parcel acceptable or amenable or functional as a park with or without, with water and sewer, without saying we want to switch jurisdictions. That would be the easiest thing to say. We would be glad to do it within Chapel Hill's jurisdiction, all these other parcels, and as far as our jurisdiction, we would like to work with Chapel Hill to see how we could affect this while we retain zoning and land use control. If that's amenable to the town, then we can figure out a way to word it.
I think that captures the spirit more. I would say, I would like to know if we can work on this essential public services definition. Again, the town wasn't planning on, we want to work together on this park. I think it's a benefit for everyone, and I think we both need to help plan for this. And I know when I was a commissioner, we talked about possibilities there, but without putting adequate public bathroom facilities, it's not going to be the kind of park we all want to see. That was our only intention when you guys brought this forward to us. That's the only interest we had, and we were told the only way to do that was to go this route. We since worked with your staff to find out there was another route after this letter came out to say that there is a possibility you could try to work on the definition of essential public facilities. So I would like us to work together to see if that's a possibility. Again, I don't think anyone's in a huge rush, but we could work towards a way together without switching from, we don't need to switch. And the council had that same discussion, that we thought that was our only options. We wanted to see it out there, and when we found it wasn't, everyone's like, well, we really don't need to do it that way.
Commissioner Markopoulos.
I generally agree with Commissioner Jacobs. One quick thought first. The Sunrise Road area seems relatively simple, right? So that maybe could be done separately. I'd really be interested in learning more about the need for water and sewer versus other water and sewer options. You know, some hard data on where it's been a problem, where it works, because I think we should really go very gently into those areas. And the other thing, this being the newest commissioner and waiting patiently to talk about a transfer station, I keep seeing things happen in that area that are narrowing the opportunity for a transfer station in what I think is the prime location for a transfer station. And I only bring that up now because maybe that land next to the Chapel Hill Operations Facility might be a prime location for a transfer station. So to the extent that you all think it's worthwhile, I would like that to be part of the discussion, how that land gets used out there.
Commissioner Jacobs.
I'm amenable to that discussion. What we've heard is it's big enough for just Chapel Hill. It's not big enough for all 3 or 4 governments. But again, we could find out. We have a solid waste advisory group where everybody's present, and the discussion of a transfer station was stymied a few years ago. And now I think we're in a more amenable place to discuss that. And I would caution that this was discussed 10 years ago, maybe, for that very site where the park is, and people considered it still part of the Rogers Road community. And I've been actually shocked at the fact that we have mentioned this several times in public meetings and nobody's said a word, nobody's written about it. Okay, but I think we should be aware that, at least in the past, the definition of Rogers Road, that's why some of us always refer to historic Rogers Road, because other people saw it as this thing that went all the way up to the Waldorf School, and it wasn't what our impression was, but that was people's assertion. And so we just have to be fully open to the fact that it may be more problematic than we might care for it to be. But I'm not against having the public conversation, and maybe we actually want to solicit some response from the Rogers Road community ahead of time, as opposed to after we're in the middle of discussing it.
Quick response on that. As long as we're letting the genie out of the bottle here, I just want to say, I have thought about that a lot and done some research on that. I've been over to the transfer station on East Club Boulevard to assess the impact of it, and I have measured the distance from there to the residential area of Rogers Road, and I'm fully prepared to go talk to anyone about why it will not impact that community at all. I just don't want the idea to get out there that it might be a huge impact, because I am certain that it would not. And if we're going to have that discussion, we need to have that analysis done in advance so that we can talk about the real impacts of a transfer station, take some field trips or whatever.
Commissioner Jacobs, Commissioner Price.
I'll leave that discussion. One more thing that I think we need to investigate if we're going to talk about water and sewer is if we change the definition of where it can, to what it can be extended within the joint planning area, I would ask that our attorney look at the issue of whether we can restrict tap-ons access to other entities if we extend water and sewer to an essential public facility, because we've been told in the past that we can't. And I would think with the current legislature, it would be very unlikely that we could limit it. Now, if we're just going across a road, that might be different. But if there's going to be a discussion of changing the rule, we need to be careful even about that. You know, maybe it's a limited distance that we're willing to consider, because, or only surrounded by, municipal and county property, because otherwise, that was one of the reasons that we limited that definition to such a degree, is because people kept shooting holes in the definition as it was, because you could, if you were a developer, you could say, okay, I want to access that line, and under North Carolina law, it was very difficult to say no.
My understanding is the sewer line comes up to the back edge of the property, past the Orange County C&D land, all that area there. So there's not any residences around where it would tap on, and nor is there likely to be if the county retains ownership or however it plays out as a park site. But I agree, we need to make sure it's very clear, and unintended consequences are hard to take back.
Commissioner Price?
Yeah, I just want to say that with it, two of you have mentioned the transfer station, and it hasn't been talked about, but I can tell you that folks in the community have heard that. They're not happy about that idea, so you'll have to have some really good backup information.
I'm prepared.
Even though it hasn't come here, perhaps, but out there, it has been talked about.
Any other comments? I'm hearing a number of things. So I'd like to just sort of put it out there, and Ms. Manager, maybe you can help me. I'm hearing that this has to go back to staff and have conversations between the Chapel Hill staff and Orange County staff. I'm hearing that we want to talk about definitions, tap-on, restricted tap-ons, and we want to know before any kind of advancement of the parcel what that means. We don't have that information, what that means to Orange County, what that means to Chapel Hill. I'm also hearing that we want to possibly vote on the Sunrise Road property tonight. Can we take that out of this and vote on just that one piece of property, Mr. Attorney?
You certainly can. This is your agenda item. If that's what the board wants to proceed on, you can.
Okay, Commissioner Barros.
I'm wondering if the mayor would like to comment on whether that you need that at this time.
I think it would be a good idea, but I think you should hold a public hearing on that specific item so the public has a chance to weigh in, and Habitat's not here tonight. I mean, I know they would like to have that, but I think it'd be better if you wanted to move forward with that item under public hearing, or you wanted us to, we could make that. I'm not sure who goes first on this. I think you have to release it first, and then we have to accept it.
I was under the impression that you were saying that we did not need a public hearing.
It is correct that, it's correct that the county would not need a public hearing. The formal public hearing would be a town public hearing, but it comes back to the county for formal resolution of support, which is always an agenda item.
So how does the board want to move forward with that?
Well,
Please.
there were some other parcels that Chapel Hill was designating that are on within its jurisdiction, or potentially within its transition area. Some of these little parcels, like the one above the Public Works. You got 3 acres there.
So we were only interested in moving forward on the Sunrise.
You don't care about the other ones?
We care, but I don't think we're ready to have a public hearing at all. I think we want to see if there's other ways to have a definition changed, or if we wanted our staffs to work out with your staff to see if there's another way to go about this. We really weren't interested in having a public hearing and getting people whipped up about that we were doing away with rural buffer. But the Sunrise Road is different from the other parcels listed, and I think if you want us to put back to have a public hearing, if you don't have to have one, I think it's still good to involve the public process. So you could send a letter on that one item saying you'd be amenable to us moving forward with a public hearing. That would work on that one. And then on the other one, we say we can have staffs work together to see if there's another avenue to move forward on the interests. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
We're getting some nods on that here, so.
Well, you want a motion?
I do,
for that?
thank you, Commissioner Price.
Okay, so a motion to actually segregate the two items, so the sunrise, to allow Chapel Hill to come back to us,
For us to move forward with a
to
public.
to move
hearing.
forward with the town, and then to bring it back to us. That would be the first one. Want to vote on that
We get a
first?
second on that?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jacobs, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Okay.
I said aye.
Okay.
I'm good.
You're giving me that face like,
No, I'm just
just getting
processing it all.
tired, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Commissioner Price, go for
And
it.
I'm not quite sure on the other part, but I think what we want to do is just allow staff to, of the various governments to work together to see what other options are available, and then perhaps to bring that to like an Assembly of Government or some other work group,
Joint meeting.
joint meeting
I think
at a
that's
future
right.
date.
And what, I think that one, the mayor was requesting that we would have documentation of that, so we would draft a letter from the chair to the mayor that says staff will work together on terminology and options.
And can we include in that Commissioner Markopolis's questions about sewer versus non-sewer that he brought up about other park facilities?
I think
Well,
the manager was
I
writing
think that's
down every
part of
part of that.
Okay.
the whole discussion.
Is that okay, Commissioner Price?
Yeah, that would be hard, yeah, that's
Okay,
part of the whole
So Commissioner
discussion.
Price is first, and, did you second, Commissioner Jacobs?
He wasn't finished.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I'm done, yeah, go
I'll
ahead.
second.
Okay, so we have a Price and yet, Mr. Attorney, do you want to add anything to that?
No, as long as you clarify that this is just for moving the discussion forward, that's
Yes, just for
absolutely
dialogue.
fine.
Just for
Done.
dialogue.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
But would
Oh,
somebody
I'm sorry.
clarify the exact motion that we've had quite a bit of discussion on what the motion is, but could we
These-
clarify exactly what the motion says?
The motion is to allow staff of Chapel Hill, Orange County, and I guess Carborough, because it's joint? No,
No.
okay. All right,
Not in their interest.
well, I didn't,
It's not their JPA.
okay. To have staff to work together on possible language and options for the disposition of these properties, and then to bring it back to us for further discussion, dialogue at a joint meeting.
And I thought there was.
And a letter, and then Mark Dorson, Chair Mark Dorson would send a letter to Mayor Heminger and Town Council explaining what we want.
And then how does Commissioner Markopolis's play into it?
I believe that's part of the list of everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
So the
Yeah, what we would do,
the bathrooms on septic versus water, off a definition of what Mayor Heminger wanted,
This
advancing
is
the parcel.
items to bring back.
Yes, it's
Okay,
all, it's all
okay,
of
I'm
that.
good.
All part of that open discussion. Is that correct? Commissioner
It
Price?
got a little convoluted there.
Yeah, it
yeah,
did.
nothing really definite, other than we can move forward with talk.
Okay, so we have a first and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, that passes. Thank you so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being
May I
here.
make a
Yes, please.
Hey, I got
suggestion?
a neighborhood
We-
toolkit while I was here.
We need to get Mr. Stansel and his department to maybe move up their planning on this parcel, on the Millhouse Road Park, because we have no adopted plan.
No, we don't have a plan. We've been, the plan would be working with the town to create the master plan for the park. And so we have reached out to the town to do that. And so we're waiting on the town to work with us on that.
Great.
We good? Okay, we are moving on to the consent agenda. Does anyone want to remove anything?
Move the consent agenda.
I would actually like to move something, so can I
sorry.
do? I'm sorry, I'm a little slow on this, but.
Okay. I didn't hear anybody give a number, so
I would like to pull O and R, please. And if
O
anyone,
and 0 and R? O and R?
and do you want to make motion to accept the rest? Or is it, no?
Because I would like to remove L and M.
L and M?
Yes, like
L
the cigarette.
and M.
All right.
Okay, so we're removing L, M, O, and R.
Yep, L, M, O, and R.
Okay, Commissioner McKee, do you want to make motion to pass the rest?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to pass the rest.
There's a first, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Commissioner Burrows, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, those against? Let's go with L, Commissioner Jacobs.
I pulled this one because the way that it's written is very sanitized, and the way I look at it is we were generally supportive of and incorporating the Jordan Lake rules, and the legislature essentially gutted them, and so we have to amend our UDO, but the way this reads, it's just, oh, well, the state is just saying we'll do this, and so we're doing it. And I think we should point out, that's all, in public, that this is forced on us, that actually it's inconsistent with our values, but we don't have a choice. We did have some issues with the way it regarded forests and agricultural lands. It didn't adequately count them toward mitigation of impacts on the lake, but it was still better than not having these rules. So I don't need to change anything. I just wanted to have us say that in public. So I'll move approval. It's pretty much pro forma.
So, approved by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Price. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, and that passes. And let's go to M, please. Commissioner Jacobs?
No, that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. So I move approval.
Yeah, I'm sorry?
I said I pulled the wrong one. I move
Okay.
approval. I meant N, but I said M, so I'm stuck with M.
Do you have anything to say on M?
I do, but we already approved it.
And you wanted,
Yeah. I'll just say what I was going to say.
please.
The only reason I pulled it is because we had a public conversation about this, and it has to do with land use planning and with some changes that might affect people. And now we're just doing it, to just do it in consent slips it by people. We seem to be more and more trying, in my opinion, slipping things past people in our land use planning, and I don't like it. And I wouldn't like it if I lived there. I would feel like, and there's a development about to come in there, I would feel like somebody's trying to put something over on me. And we are not trying to, this board is not trying to put anything over on anybody. So that's why I wanted to pull it off consent, is to make it clear that we welcome public conversation about it, and we were not just trying to slip it by. But I already moved to approve M.
Emma.
Second.
Well, we did that. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. I pulled O just to make sure that everyone knew that you can have a cocktail at a restaurant or buy alcohol at a package store. So I just wanted to make sure, because Chapel Hill did not do that. So I wanted to make sure that we are not getting confused with Chapel Hill. Carborough did, their ordinance is like Orange County's ordinance, but Chapel Hill's ordinance is not. So that's why I pulled it. And so, I'm sorry?
You're saying Chapel Hill did not approve?
Did not approve package store. They approved only in the restaurants.
Oh, I missed that.
So that's why I bid it. So I will move that we pass O.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and then the last one, the performance agreement between Chapel Hill and the Visitors Bureau. And basically, I pulled this because I want to thank Chapel Hill. They have been supportive year after year with the performance agreement, and we do not have a performance agreement with Carborough and Hillsborough. Lori is here if she wants to say anything, but we've been working on this with the manager, and I just want to make sure that Chapel Hill feels kind of special here, because they have been supportive over and over again, and it's a shame that the mayor left, but I don't know, Lori, if you want to add anything to that?
Good evening. Thank you, Commissioner Rich. Yes, Chapel Hill, Orange County, for beginners, makes tourism possible. And we just saw Commerce report $190 million generated last year. So clearly, it's an industry we're supporting. Thank you. Several years ago, this board made it clear to Chapel Hill that it really funds a personnel retirement and operation, a facility, and a basic tourism program, and that's where all the money goes. And as tourism became more competitive and there became more channels to amplify our message, Chapel Hill was asked to contribute more. They started at $69,000. They're currently at $250,000 of their $1 million collection. They've been a good partner. They continue to give us transit wraps, wayfinding, etc. As Carrboro and Hillsborough introduced their own occupancy tax in recent years, they've elected to keep the 3%, saying the county already has 3% levied against our hotels, and that's sufficient. So our board, with you, have gone back to them and said, not really, the county's 3% pays for staff, building, et cetera. Could you please contribute? And that's a conversation that's currently going on right now. Earlier this year, the manager sent them a memo, and I certainly don't want to put words in her mouth, but the memo was really looking out for Hillsborough and Carrboro, saying if you give a percent of what you're collecting, it gives you a larger amplified voice at the table, and we want you to have that. So it wasn't a parity of funding. We're certainly not looking for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but a $10,000 or $15,000 or 15% of their occupancy tax puts them more in a seat of equal voice and amplification with Chapel Hill, and I believe that's what the manager is looking for. So I'm certainly happy to support any continued conversations down that road.
Do you want to make a comment?
Yeah, we did send that letter. We were directed from the Hillsborough town manager to work with, we were sent to work with another group outside of the town.
Yes, the Tourism Development Authority, yes.
And so we haven't had that meeting yet, but we will be having that meeting. And then the town of Carrboro, we have not heard a response from them regarding that issue at this time. But I continue to meet with the town manager and talk about those issues.
And it's perfect timing as we hire a new ad agency. It's a good time to relook at that brand and make sure that we're all one united tourism industry that works well for Orange County.
Thank you, Lori.
Thank you.
So I'll move R.
Tried.
Need a second?
Second.
Second by Markopoulos. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. County Manager's Report.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair and Commissioners. This evening, I would just remind us all that on Thursday, September 7th, we do have a work session, and the work session on the agenda is county board related issues, boards and commissions, and other protocol issues that have been chosen to be spoke about.
Boards and commission discussions and questions that have arisen, in the last few months, and the calendar discussion. Plus, there's a closed session, and the closed session will be at the beginning of the meeting, and as you already know, it started at the very beginning.
And that meeting is here or is in Southern?
It's at Southern,
Okay.
at 7 p.m. And that concludes my report this evening. Thank you.
County Attorney?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. So now we're moving into appointments.
Madam Chair
Yes.
/ Vice Chair.
I'm sorry?
Have we gotten any advanced information about the closed session?
Yeah.
It's at your places.
It's right here at your places. There's an envelope.
Ah, the one that says closed session?
That one.
Yeah, that one. On September 7th.
Yeah, for Thursday.
The year wasn't on there, but
Exactly. Come on.
So 11A, we've already taken care of. We are going to move into 11B. And that's one position that is open, and we have the jury commission making a recommendation for Bob Hall.
I'll move we accept Bob Hall, appoint
Second.
Bob Hall.
Markopoulos, and seconded by Price. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then D is the Unified Orange Unified Transportation Board, also known as the OUT Board.
Wait, you skipped one.
Skip C.
I skipped C. Thank you.
Mebane.
Jump, Mebane.
Oh, Mebane Planning Board, I'm sorry.
Move
There is
Mr.
one
Hoover.
I'm sorry?
Second.
Move Mr. Hoover.
Oh, okay.
And second.
Second.
Jacobs,
Well,
McKee,
give it-
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, cool. Now we can go to the OUT Board. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions, and there are some names that are recommended. Take a minute to look at that. Motion, anyone?
I'm going to make a nomination for 2 people, and so other folks will have a chance. Position 6, Brantley Welsh. Position 8, Art Menace.
Meetings.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of 6 and 8, say aye.
Aye.
All against? Okay, so that passes, and then we need position 3, 9, and 11.
I'll nominate Ms. Perry for 11.
Second.
All those in favor of Ms. Perry for 11, say aye.
Aye.
Against? No.
I'll
Okay.
nominate Jen Sykes for 9.
Jen Sykes for 9, need a second?
Second.
Second for Jen Sykes on 9. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And then we have number 3, position 3 left?
I have a comment.
Yep. Commissioner
Comment
Markopoulos?
/ question. So I was looking at the attendance report. Maybe you all saw this too. Excused, 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 absent, absent, present, present, no meetings. So there were 3 presents out of basically 10 meetings. Some excused, some unexcused, and I'm just wondering how that's viewed when people apply.
Usually, our policy is if you miss 70% of the meetings, then we talk to you, the staff talks to you, I talk to the individual appointee. We have not heard anything from the outboard about Mr. Vaughn at all.
70%? Is that what you said?
If they miss,
If you
unless
miss
they have
70%.
excused absences for work, et cetera. And I can
Okay.
ask the outboard and Abigail Pittman for that, because usually she's pretty much on top of applicants and appointees, and so she has not sent anything to our office or asked for any help in contacting the person about his attendance. But if y'all would rather wait on that particular appointment, we can bring that one back and I can get more information if y'all would feel more comfortable.
I think that's a good idea. Is that what you're getting at, Commissioner
Yeah, I mean,
Markopoulos?
For whatever reason, he only showed up at 3 meetings.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
I will contact Ms. Pittman and find out if they have any concerns, because she has not contacted us at all.
Okay. And is there anyone else that wants to put someone else in that position, number 3?
They have to be from Cedar Grove, and I was looking to see if we had any more applicants.
No.
We don't.
Okay. So we're going to wait on that.
We can
Wait.
bring that
Position
one,
number
for that
3.
particular
Everyone feels
position back.
comfortable
We'll
with
bring that back.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then information items you all have. And we do not have a closed session, and I need motion to adjourn.
Second.
You don't want comments?
Yes, you do have a
Oh,
closed session.
we do comments and?
We do have a closed
Have a
session.
closed session.
We do have a closed
Yeah, it's
session.
on the bottom of your sheet, yeah. under
Okay,
the
Commissioner
information.
McKee, go ahead. Put us into closed session.
Motion to go in closed session.
Second.
Purpose.
All right, here we go. All those in favor?
Aye.
Sure.
I thought we were doing comments and stuff in the beginning now.